The episode you're about to listen to was originally recorded on August 30th, 2025. Its recording was not motivated by the war with Iran initiated by the United States on February 28th, 2026. That said, it would be wrong to say that its relevance is coincidental. The subject of today's episode, Spec Ops The Line, was originally released in 2012. The conditions that led to its creation are the same conditions that led us to our present moment. The United States government is destabilizing the Middle East to maintain influence and control over the region, its people, and their resources. But the story of a global power colonizing a region to protect the interest of capital stretches back even further than that. There's an off-cited quote that's useful here. It has been said that history repeats itself. This is perhaps not quite correct. It merely rhymes. An example of this can be seen in the enduring legacy of the novella Heart of Darkness, written by Joseph Conrad. Heart of Darkness is a work of fiction, though its story, told through the perspective of a steamboat captain traveling the Congo River for a Belgian ivory trading company, drew heavily from Conrad's personal experiences in the region. The book is a product of its time and place in many ways, and its portrayal of colonialism is no exception. But the bones of its story lend themselves to future works that would explore the novel's themes through the forms of colonialism that would take shape over the next 130 years. Francis Ford Coppola's 1979 film Apocalypse Now was heavily inspired by Heart of Darkness, reflecting the image of U.S. imperialism during the Cold War, in which it leveraged its military and economic power to protect their capitalist interests by suppressing revolutionary uprisings in the global South. The private ivory companies traveling through a colony owned by Belgian monarchs were replaced with a U.S. Army captain taking a Navy patrol boat through war-torn Vietnam. Apocalypse Now is not a remake of Heart of Darkness, though. It is not the same story repeating itself. They rhyme. The overlapping themes are carried forward as things change shape. Movies overtake books as the dominant form of entertainment, and colonialism and imperialism function differently with the same general goal in mind. Spec Ops The Line, released in 2012, brings Heart of Darkness and Apocalypse Now's themes to the 21st century. The details of Spec Ops' story are deliberately more complicated, with your Delta Squad team encountering how repeated US intervention adds layer after layer of suffering to the people of Dubai in the wake of a natural disaster. It's a reflection of the more abstract foreign policy of the United States in the 21st century, where this global empire leverages their economic and militaristic power to bend the world economy to its whims, largely reacting to blowback from their foreign policy decisions from previous decades in the global South. The cascading effects of these decisions in the Middle East in particular are the cause of the oppressive regimes and destabilizing conditions we see today, which then becomes the justification for continued intervention, which results in additional blowback, continuing a cycle that changes shape but still resembles the power dynamic we have seen going back to Heart of Darkness and beyond. Accumulating imperial power and protecting class interests. Exploitation must continue, no matter the cost, no matter the form, and no matter the consequences. The reason this pattern persists, that history continues to rhyme, and works like Spec Ops remain relevant is because the forces carrying these actions out, namely the United States, have not been held accountable for the consequences of these heinous actions. Certainly not directly anyway. The laws of inertia state that objects in motion stay in motion unless acted upon by force. And while we cannot deny there has been blowback, the hollow men in charge maintain course because it ultimately does not blow back to them. And even when the blowback reaches America, it goes through us, the people, before it touches them. Take, for example, the formation of the Department of Homeland Security, under which TSA and ICE operate. That department was made in response to the 9/11 attacks carried out by Al-Qaeda, the origin of which can be traced back to America's relations with the Mujahideen fighters of the Afghan-Soviet War. America's oppressive foreign policy inevitably comes back as domestic policy. Safety and freedom have eroded all over the world. And you, wherever you're listening to this, have more in common with the people in the Middle East, including Iran, than you do with American policymakers. Because at the end of the day, we are all suffering from their policies. The hollow men in power evade accountability through lies.
Indeed, the facts and Iraq's behavior show that Saddam Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
Through obfuscation.
Reports that say that something hasn't happened are always interesting to me because, as we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
Through deception.
And what we are seeing is not the war in Iraq. What we're seeing are slices of the war in Iraq. We're seeing that particularized perspective that reporter or that commentator or that television camera happens to be able to see at that moment.
By outright refusing to accept accountability even when they're caught in the act.
A few months ago, I told the American people I did not trade arms for hostages. My heart and my best intentions still tell me that's true, but the facts and the evidence tell me it is not.
And through abstraction, America may not have any formal colonies in the Middle East, because they can just ally themselves with an ethno-nationalist genocidal colony that's more than happy to serve their foreign interests.
It is the best $3 billion investment we make. Were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region. The United States would have to go out and invent an Israel.
That last clip was from a debate on the U.S. Senate floor in 1986. The senator speaking was a Democrat from Delaware named Joseph Biden. This cycle, this rhyming, this repetition, cannot be overcome without confrontation. The United States government as it functions lacks the capacity for compassion necessary to end this cycle on its own. The people in charge fundamentally do not want to end the cycle. As long as the empire exists, the cycle will persist. And we, as the people, have to do something. Because if we just sit and wait for change, we will inevitably bear witness to our own demise. With that in mind, I wanted to read a poem, The Second Coming, written by W.B. Yeats. And while the poem itself does not contain a rhyme scheme, the events that inspired its apocalyptic prose continue to echo through time, bringing its grim vision of the future with it. The Second Coming by W.B. Yeats. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it reel shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again. But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born? This is one vision of the future. The slow march to destruction carried out and enabled by hollow men. And while the past is set in stone, we still have the future. The past can serve as a dark omen if we remain passive, but if we act, that darkness can be made into a light for a brighter tomorrow. Cycles can be broken. I want to call back to that quote from earlier. It has been said that history repeats itself. This is perhaps not quite correct. It merely rhymes. While researching this episode, I wanted to dig deeper into the context of that quote. It is often, erroneously, attributed to Mark Twain, but the quote originated from the psychoanalyst Theodore Reich in his 1965 essay, The Unreachables. Within this 80-page-long essay is Reich, himself a Jewish man who fled Nazism in Europe, examining Jewish history through a psychoanalytic lens as a means of understanding the repeating patterns of oppression faced by the diaspora throughout history. When looking toward the future to identify ways of finally breaking this cycle, Reich specifically rejects both America and Zionism as the forces that will break the cycle of oppression and prejudice. Rather, he envisions a future without states or nationalities, where all forces at work press toward the direction of a united mankind. This future is also possible. If we roll over and die, the world will end with a whimper. And we must do more than simply identify the problem and its roots. We must prevail over this problem, learn from it, and let compassion overwhelm apathy and cruelty. I'll close out this introduction with 2 paragraphs from the end of Theodore Reich's essay. But what of the repetition compulsion? It is a powerful compulsion dictated by an intense inner necessity. Yet it is not all-powerful. It is not omnipotent. It will be slowly, but surely, overcome by other tendencies, especially by the power of Eros, by the love of mankind. The splendid isolation of persons and groups can last a long time, but it is always penetrated finally in the life of persons as well as in that of groups. We never work things out alone, neither as persons nor as groups. We always need others, persons or groups. I'm Keifer, and this is Select and Start. Hello, and welcome to Select and Start, the podcast about meaningful and memorable video games. I'm your host, Keifer, and every episode I bring on a guest who selects a game that made an impact on their life. I have a wonderful guest with me today. She is a fellow Moonshot creator and co-host of Unwise Girls, a Riordan reread podcast. It's Jane. Jane, how are you today?
Hello, I'm good. We've never been able to figure out if it's Riordan or Riordan, so we just call him Rick all the time.
It's the Rickcast.
That's exactly.
Yeah. This is going to be a complicated episode, complicated pronunciation of names, complicated video game topic. But before we get into all of that, Jane, let's talk about you. What do you do and what do you like?
As you mentioned, I co-host Unwise Girls, where we go through various Percy Jackson and other associated books. Mostly ragging on them recently. They've been pretty bad lately, but I do that. I do quite a lot of writing in my spare time. I play video games. And sometimes I talk about them on podcasts.
Yeah. So let's talk about video games on a podcast right now. As we all know, no community likes to gatekeep more than the gamers. We're going to have to check your credentials here, Jane. Let's talk about your gaming history, who or what got you into it, your relationship with it throughout the years. What's Jane's portrait of a gamer?
I guess, I'm very like Nintendo heavy, I think is like the real like through line in my gaming history. Like I started really seriously gaming on like a Game Boy Advance when I was like 5 years old. And then from there onto like the Wii and the Wii U, because I was always like, and this will play into the episode actually, I always thought of like the PS3 and the Xbox 360 as like, those are the military shooter consoles, and those are stinky boy games, and I don't want to play them.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to sit over here, I am going to max out my character's level in Wii Sports, I am going to play Legend of Zelda, and then I'm going to get into weird PC games as soon as I have access to the internet.
Sure. If you're, especially with the Xbox 360 and PS3 era, what we now know as like not now know, but the 7th generation of video game consoles, there's such a heavy disconnect between whatever the fuck Nintendo's doing and then what's popular on the PlayStation Xbox ecosystem, not just because of like the hardware. I mean, the hardware differences between the consoles were certainly a part of that, right? But also what was becoming popular, what was in the zeitgeist, right? And that's cover shooters, first-person shooters, gun, gray, white person voiced by Nolan North, the whole shebang, right? It's certainly like an era that at least I look back on and think, man, dire in terms of interesting output, or you really have to look for it. But fortunately there was, and that's not being dismissive of the entire like era, right?
Oh no.
Indie titles are just becoming super mainstream and accessible to a wide audience because of these marketplaces that you're able to use to connect to on the internet and download games directly onto consoles. For every like military shooter, there's also like something plucky and quirky that you can buy for $5 to $15 to sort of break out of that nonsense.
And this is like the era where like Bastion is hitting it big, and like Bastion is like the debut title by Supergiant, which is like one of my favorite developers of all time, who developed like several of my favorite games ever made. So like,
yeah,
not like a complete cultural desert.
No, but it is like, I think nothing accentuates the era more than just whatever was going on with Super Smash Brothers Brawl aesthetically, like the Mushroom Kingdom episode, that the Mushroom Kingdom auto scroller level where it looks like a desert.
I saw that going around the other day. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the era. Everything is the desert and drab.
Everyone's dungarees look weirdly realistic.
Mm-hmm. Look at all of like, you can see the fabric on Mario. the denim texture. So, what are some of your favorite games? I mean, we're going to be talking about this game in a bit here, but what are some of Jane's favorite video game titles?
I mentioned Supergiant Games, and like by far my favorite game by them is Transistor,
Mm,
which is a 2014 like isometric kind of turn-based RPG. It's got a really weird plot. It's about a singer who's had her voice stolen, and she lives in like a virtual reality that is being slowly infected by viruses that she's having to kill with her boyfriend's soul, who is now in a sword.
hmm
And I just like it because it has the most kick-ass soundtrack in all of video games. The main theme, "Old Friends," is still like it's in my like work playlist to this day.
hmm I remember you very when we were trying to get you on the show a while ago. This has been a long time coming. You mentioned Transistor as one of the games you'd be interested in talking about.
I did. It was between that Spec Ops, or probably the Beginner's Guide, which is one of my other favorite games. It's by one of the writers of the Stanley Parable, Davey Reedon. It's set up as like a narrator who is showing you a bunch of games that a friend of his made before cutting contact with him, and you kind of play more and more of these levels, and you kind of essentially have the narrator crashing out basically the whole time. You realize that like he, in a really weird way, he was trying to like mediate his friendship with this person through like using video games that he was making to understand him instead of just like speaking to him like a normal person.
Right.
And you kind of get to see how that process worked as he takes you through the levels. And I just think that's one of the most like weird and interesting video games I've ever played.
It sounds like you are really drawn to video games with an unreliable narrator setup.
Oh
Then,
yeah.
yeah. So, is there like maybe like a narrative reason, like a reason why? I mean, I know you are a writer yourself and talk about books. Is there some sort of like something that draws you to that, or do you think that that's just some sort of like unconscious love?
I guess it is. If I had to rationalize it, I would just say that I love weird little freaks. And if you have a biased narrator or an unreliable narrator, there are so many things that you can do outside of just like their actions or their dialogue. So much you can do in the way that the world is filtered through what they're doing and saying and seeing to communicate how much of a weird little freak they are.
Right. Perspective is something that it's just very important in all sorts of storytelling, right? And I
Mhm.
think the thing that we have really picked up on with where we are now in game development is how can we tell interesting stories now that we're kind of hitting a ceiling in terms of like graphical fidelity,
Oh
right?
yeah.
It was much more difficult to communicate perspective when we had these limited graphics, right? You're being limited by the form in terms of
Mm.
the form of what you can do. But now I've just noticed this like trend of being more artfully considered about what perspective that you're taking. Is it because of nostalgia that you're setting a game in this bird's eye isometric view, or is there like
Mhm.
something that you're trying to communicate either visually or narratively? I'm very interested in games that change like perspective in like a first person to third person. Take Undertale, for example, where
Ooh.
the battles are in a first person, like early Dragon Quest
Yeah.
Earthbound perspective versus how Deltarune has a third person perspective when you when you have a team dynamic, right? You have this third person view for battles, and that communicates different things about what the game is trying to do and what the game is trying to do with battles specifically in that series.
Yeah, definitely. That never ever really occurred to me. I'm ashamed to say because I was always just like, oh, in the battles in Undertale, I'm playing as the little heart thing.
hmm
That's clearly my character.
Yeah, my little heart dot.
Exactly.
Right, yeah. That whole perspective and, like, how we visually see it is also something that Undertale plays with because it has
Mm.
this meta thing going on where, like, say, at the very beginning is Flowey talking to you or talking to your character that you're playing through. Is the heart literally there or is it not, right? Famously, like, the Asgore battle where he puts like, his weapon through the mercy button to keep you from
Yeah.
he's keeping you from using a mechanic of the game. Is that something he's literally blocking you from, or is that like a more visual indicator? And it's that push and pull and the interpretations of that that have itself to why Undertale is so discussed and analyzed by its fans.
Which is really messed up because my friend Jacqueline like dragged me through all of Homestuck for our podcast bonus show, and now whenever anyone talks about the meta elements in Undertale, I'm just like, oh, I just have to think about Homestuck now. She put this virus in my brain.
Yeah, I'm glad that I did not invest in Homestuck stock when I was a teenager on Tumblr.
No, I didn't. It terrified me for years, just like viewing it from the outside.
Mm-hmm. I was vaguely aware of the Undertale Homestuck connection as, Toby Fox being some person that lived in the Homestuck guy's basement for a period of time as he started plucking away at this thing, and it's sort of becoming its own identity. And sort of now in like the zeitgeist, Toby Fox being able to break out from the Homestuck stigma of it all.
You say that. Did you not hear he's voicing John Egbert in the new Homestuck cartoon?
I don't get the Homestuck newsletter. I apologize for saying he broke out.
That's the most devastating thing you could have said to me, is that I get the Homestuck newsletter. Toby Fox is voicing John in the new animated show.
I see. Well, sorry, I think. I don't know.
He's still in Andrew Hussey's basement, metaphorically.
Yeah. He's chained to a radiator, just forced to keep... Oh my god. All right, so moving away from Homestuck, let's talk about video games again. You talked about how you were sort of invested into the Nintendo ecosystem and then got into weird PC games. So what would you say your favorite console is overall?
Oh, my favorite console... This is probably nostalgia. This is rose-tinted glasses. I still have my Nintendo DS from when I was a kid. It still works. It's still in my bedside drawer. I still fire it up and play it sometimes.
Cool.
I love the DS so much.
I love it. I love its design. I love the whole, like, how people developed around it. I agree.
It's great. I mean, I also had like I always had a good variety of games for the DS, because one day my dad came home and he had something for me called an R4 card, which he was just like, oh yeah, you put a bunch of games on this and it works really well on the DS. And I immediately like took it to school and was like, look at all these cool games I have on here, and then had it blindsided on me by all my friends that like, hey, those are all pirated, right? Your dad is like illegally downloaded all these games. Well, I was like 8, so I just freaked out. It was like, oh my god, my DS is going to be taken away from me by the police.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, I was at like I don't know, my dad took me places, and like there were kids at this particular place that we were dragged to. We never went back to this place again, but like one of the parents was like, hey kids, watch Shrek 2. And I was like, I just saw Shrek 2 in the theaters like 3 weeks ago. How is he doing this? And the answer is, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. What are you, a cop?
Yeah, pretty much. That was my dad's reaction when I asked him about it.
Who's asking? It's fine. Shout out to the Internet Archive. So,
true.
What are some of your favorite DS games?
I was always a big Professor Layton kid. I finished like maybe one of those games because I'm really dumb and I couldn't do all the puzzles, but I just loved like the atmosphere of them.
Yeah.
And it did also make me feel very smart when I did do the puzzles, even though I'd used all my hint coins by like halfway through the game.
If it's part of the game and you used it, then you're playing fair. So
Exactly. But yeah, Professor Layton, obviously Pokemon, I was big into. I feel like there was another one. That doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the DS library is something I really want to go back to, despite the limited ability to. I have my 3DS still to this day, but of course, getting physical copies of DS games is such a crapshoot, and the form factor is a big appeal of playing DS games.
Yeah.
So I really want to go back and play a lot of those DS exclusives, because the ones I did play really mean a lot to me, and it's just this wonderful RPG console that has some of the definitive versions of some of the best RPGs ever. Not to mention these games that were so unique to it, like the early Layton games.
Yeah.
Were so crucial to it. And that's something I feel is a major blind spot for me, are the Professor Layton games. I just got into the Phoenix Wright series a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And I really want to reconcile that with the Professor Layton stuff, because I just feel that those two are of a piece. And people agree, because of course they had the crossover game.
Yeah, which I need to play.
Yeah, I need to play all the Layton games.
I really, actually, now that you mentioned the RPG thing, I forgot. But like, yeah, one of my favorite things that I need to like find a copy of and replay is Dragon Quest IX: Sentinels of the Starry Skies.
I have a copy of that. If I can mail it to you if you really need to play it.
I don't think you can, but thank you.
Oh, right. Tariffs. Shit.
But yeah, that was also like, that was one of those RPGs that you play, and when you're a certain type of person like I am, you're like, oh, I can just switch off the main character and pick a different character to play as. Hey, I could just use one of the girl characters as my main character. I'm going to do that for no reason.
Which could mean nothing.
I'm sure it meant absolutely nothing.
Right. We're gonna need to do like the psychological study one day of like in like a how video games have been a net good for the trans community and allowing them to explore like this space in an early age and being able to crack that egg. But also, I'm a cis man. Not my place to even
I
make that
mean,
suggestion.
I was when I was listening to Jacqueline's episode on Tony Hawk, and she was talking about how like, oh yeah, I was able to play as like female skaters in some of these games. I was nodding my head so vigorously along with that.
Yeah. I mean, like this is again outsider here. Just the number of stories I've heard from people who get this. Like there's representation, right? But the
Mhm.
thing about video games is because of this projection that you're able to impart onto the player character, that has reinforced gender in a lot of ways in how like the default has been assumed for most of gaming's history as being a man is playing this, right?
Yeah.
But also this liberating way in these more customizable settings where you're able to make your character reflect or just opposed to the gender mode that you're assigned in
Yeah,
life,
absolutely.
and like being able to explore that in so many different ways. It's certainly not the intention that people were doing when they made these things, right? But it is just like part of the modern trans experience.
Listen, it's fine. Foucault said it's cool. I can project as many trans characters as I want onto these games.
Yeah, Foucault said it. It's fine. Foucault said, like, yeah, Tony Hawk, it's The Sims, the dress up games on the Barbie websites. Those were fine. Don't worry about it. Man, the point is, video games are so cool. They can also be a vector for evil in the military industry complex. In conclusion, it's a land of contrasts.
Certainly is.
What have you been playing lately?
I've been rotting my brain by just playing like Civilization 5 constantly. That was like when I first started getting into PC games, like it was weird indie stuff, and Civ 5, I have like 1,000 hours in Civ 5.
What appeals to you about Civ 5?
I think at this point it's just like muscle memory and force of habit, because I tried playing out the Civ games and I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's so like ingrained in me to just like, oh, I need the buttons to be this color to trigger the dopamine response when I nuke this city.
Yeah. It's like I understand that like user interface is like one of the whole central things about what civilization people gravitate towards. I think it
Yeah.
was Civ 7 the new one?
Civ 7 is the new one, yeah.
Yeah, I remember specifically people complaining about the user interface of Civilization 7. And unfortunately, one of the people who worked on Civilization 6 is, and the UI specifically on Civilization 6 is currently in prison for allegedly shooting the United Healthcare CEO. So, I
Wait,
don't.
what?
Yeah, Luigi
That's-
Mangione worked on Civilization 6.
Well, I really hate Civ 6's UI. I think it's monochrome, it's boring, it's difficult to like read and tell what things are. So that's my problem with Luigi Mangione. That's my issue with him, my singular issue.
So you're saying on the record, lock him up.
I'm saying take another game design course, maybe.
All right.
When you're out.
He was an intern. He was an intern. But yeah, no. You can go on Luigi Mangione's LinkedIn, and it's right there. I worked on Civ 6. And it's like, hell yeah, brother. Yeah. There's a whole world out there. Isn't life grand? What else are you playing?
I am playing Misericorde. I'm playing a bunch of with my girlfriend at the moment, and one of her other girlfriends.
What's Misericorde about?
It's a visual novel set in a 14th century nunnery in England. The premise is that one of the nuns has been murdered, she's been beheaded, and you play as Hedwig. Her job is basically that she's locked up in a small room at all times with no human contact, so she is like broken out of her cell to investigate the mystery because she's the only person who couldn't possibly have done it. It's a really cool, really interesting game. It's very like Jacqueline would know more about this than me because we played the first volume together for an episode actually a while back. It's very like Umineko.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm looking this up right now because this is the first time I've heard of this, but I love the visual style.
Yeah, it's actually by this is really funny actually. It's by ZC, who has done the writing and the art for it as far as I understand. And they are actually they are the co-host of a different podcast called The Shrieking Shack, which was like a Harry Potter hater podcast that was like,
okay,
it was like a huge inspiration actually behind Unwise Girls. It was like Jacqueline and I were listening to a ton of that, and then we were both like, man, we could probably do this shit. What's another popular YA series?
I love that Ouroboros of influence that's going on there. Yeah, no, I'll have to look into this. I really like the style here, and It's rare that somebody brings a video game on this podcast that I just completely haven't heard of. So thank you for this.
No worries.
Yeah. All right. So saving that here. Anything else that you're playing? Anything that you're into right now?
Not in terms of playing, but I've been trying to keep up with my voice training by basically reading books to my girlfriends at night. So I'm reading one of my girlfriends, Leviathan Wakes by James S. A. Corey, which is the first of the Expanse books,
Hmm.
which I have read. I love. We watched the show together, and she kind of is not able to focus on reading as much. So I'm just like, well, I'll just read it to you while I'm doing my voice training.
Okay.
And then the other one is Fly by Night by Frances Harding. My other girlfriend was just like, this is one of my favorite YA books. You should get a copy and then read it to me and then tell me what you think about it.
Mm.
Because this is just the experience, is that people will just like hand you a thing and then be like, tell me your thoughts on this. Like someone will hand you a copy of Spec Ops The Line and be like, all right, now you need to tell me your interpretations of this, which is what I did to you.
Fair enough, right? It was a good motivator. It's like, oh, I can use this to have another episode of the podcast, and I've been meaning to play this forever, right? So thank you. But yeah, no, I mean, I certainly relate to that experience as somebody who is living with their girlfriend right now, right? It's this constant like back and forth of give me something and then they give me
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
right? And like, especially because we come from different worlds, right? Like I am much more into video games and was raised on video games. So I'm able to like, hey, you seem like you like this. And then like she's playing Hades and she's really into Hades, right?
Yes.
Speaking of Supergiant, right? There's just like a lot to that game that can appeal to almost anybody because you have like this dating sim aspect, and then there's also like this war of attrition and progress and sense of progression that you're making in the actual action of the game, and then this like level of customizability that you're able to do as you go through the game. It's just very easy to get swept up in it, and it is so. It made me feel very good that she was able to sink her teeth into that.
Yeah.
For me right now, I've been playing lots of stuff actually for the first time in a while. My life has been crazy because with work, I've been so busy with work, and that's why I haven't been able to put out as many episodes this year.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been traveling a lot for work, and I bought a Steam Deck so I could actually play while I'm traveling because I hate the airport so much.
The airport sucks.
Yeah, airports suck, airplanes suck, and I do love hotel rooms though. That is a thing that I have discovered about myself is I do love the vibe of just being able to have a space to myself amid the chaos of life, and having a Steam Deck is great because I don't have to. It's such a crapshoot with televisions. I'm going to be
Mhm.
very neurotic for a second because some televisions have the motion smoothing left on, and the television settings in certain hotels do not let you change the TV settings. So the motion smoothing's on. It's like, well, fuck this. I'm just going to play a video game, and it's great to just grab my Steam Deck and play video games. So I have been playing video games while I am on the road, so to speak, and it's been great because I have been playing games like Live Alive right now.
Oh, what's that?
Live Alive is a game that Square published back in the 90s that never came out in America, and it is actually hugely influential. Like it's actually like tremendously influential on Undertale, for example.
Oh.
The song Megalovania in Undertale is from a track in A Live Alive, Megalomania. And
Oh.
the composer of Live Alive is actually like one of the goats of composing, one of maybe my favorite video game composer ever, known for composing video games like Kingdom Hearts and the Mario and Luigi series and Super Mario RPG, Yoko Shimomura. And she is an incredible composer, and the music in this game is very good, and the story is sort of proto Chrono Trigger. Square would release Chrono Trigger the next year. You are playing, I think, 8 storylines. It's an RPG, but with like a grid-based RPG system. But like it is different eras of history, caveman times, present day,
Yeah.
Edo Japan era. Like I can't remember which era of Chinese history, but they're like just different eras and different cultural points in life. And the distant future, which is an alien riff, it's all like really, really fun. And I haven't really seen how this all coheres into the central narrative, if it is all going to like connect in the end game. But I'm just really excited to get through it because it is such a I'm so glad that this got an HD 2D remake recently so I can experience this game in a modern context and just really see something that was like super influential get like a Western release, one, but also just I'm having a great time with it. I think it rules.
I mean, just from what you're saying about like, oh, the Nostromo from Alien will combine with caveman times, will combine with a guy at the DMV in present day, is enough for me to be like, I need to see how that crosses over. I need to know that. So what's that?
Right.
What's that name again? I'm just gonna write that down.
Live
Actually,
Alive. It's stylized as a live, Live. No, it's great. And like there's like just like subtle mechanical differences in each era that you're playing in. Like in Edo, Japan, you are playing as an assassin, and you can choose to use stealth, or you can just choose to slaughter your way through the entire
you can take the stealthy approach or go in guns blazing.
absolutely, right? And how the story shifts based on the decisions that you're making alters, which is super interesting, right?
That's
Because like
cool.
this game was made in 1994, and so many games afterwards like try and reflect that relationship of how you're doing things in the game, like mechanically, like how many people you kill versus don't kill, and there being a difference in that. That's so early on in that. Like
Yeah.
Kojima hadn't even done Metal Gear Solid yet. So no, I'm having a great time playing with it, and I may be talking about it in an episode soon. Who's to say?
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I've also been having a lot of fun playing more bite-sized video games recently. Like I just played We Love Katamari.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible game. I loved Katamari Damacy, and I think I love We Love Katamari even more.
That's good. That means that the title of the game isn't a lie.
Yeah, no. And speaking of Namco games, I've also been playing the Ridge Racer series a little bit.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know a lot of the podcasters that I am into are playing racing games at the same time all of a sudden. And Into the Aether was doing an episode on the PSP and talking about Ridge Racer 2 on the PSP specifically. And they happen to have that on the PlayStation Premium service on PlayStation 5. So
Oh,
I
cool.
downloaded that and checked it out, and it fucking rips, actually. Atmospherically, mechanically, and sonically. Turns out the Ridge Racer games are fucking awesome, and it's not just a meme.
I don't think I've ever heard of them before.
Most people know Ridge Racer from that E3 2006 presentation where the guy goes, Ridge Racer.
I see.
It's Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer. Remember that one? All right, so let me go right ahead, get right into the game. Oh, this brings back memories. I don't know if it's just me, but here we go.
God, I miss E3.
Rest in peace, E3. But Ridge Racer 2 is just this really satisfying racing experience that demands you actually engage with the mechanics of having to drift and build momentum through drifting instead of hard braking in turns. And the way that every race starts is that you're always in last place and you have to race your way up to first. So there's always like this tension of actually having to make your way to the front instead of starting on an even playing field like a standard racing game might.
Oh, that's cool.
That tension of like you have to get your way to first place and then maintain that. And if you're playing in the first person view, like it recommends that you do, you have this rear view mirror that you also have to constantly monitor when you're climbing your way up, and even when you're maintaining first place, because somebody might end up behind you and you have to keep maneuver your vehicle in a way where they're not coming in first place.
That's really cool. Actually, I like that a lot.
No, yeah, it's really cool. And it made me play R4, which was Ridge Racer Type 4, which was a 90s PlayStation 1 Ridge Racer game that is so fucking cool. It has this really good user interface, just really cool visual style, and incredible jazz soundtrack. I'm just having a great time playing through both of those Ridge Racer games in my downtime.
I did recently play a racing game again. I was like having a get together with a couple of friends from school, and we dug out an old Wii and played Mario Kart Wii.
Nice.
And
it's a great one.
It's a great game. I felt so bad because they were both like, "Oh, it's been years since we played this. Oh, we don't really know what we're doing." And I just kind of crushed them every single race. Not because I've been playing it recently, but because like I put hundreds of hours into that game when I was a kid.
Muscle memory, yeah, no, that was a family game for me.
I could pick the nitro cycle with my eyes shut.
I remember when we first got we as a family, that was something that like the whole household would play together, maybe 2 nights a week. So that's the one that feels nostalgic to me, even though there have been better Mario Kart games since. But
Yeah.
that is like a thing that speaks to the unique aspect of every Mario Kart game and how each one has something to contribute, because we felt comprehensive at the time and had characters that I think might still be exclusive to it
I
until,
still
I don't
think
know.
Funky Kong has showed up again.
Yeah. Like it has Funky Kong, and any game that has a funky mode in it, I'm going to love. So Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, Mario Kart Wii, one day a third example.
I know nothing about Funky Kong except that he was in Mario Kart.
Well, I mean, there's not much to Funky Kong. He's just a cool brother that shows up in Donkey Kong games.
See, I didn't even know he was a brother. I thought it was just like Donkey Kong doing a bit. It's like a Sheik situation.
No, he's like, "What's up, bro? You need to like be teleported to a different area on the map right now. I got you, man."
Oh.
I think that's his deal. He's either that or a save point. Let me do this. Funky Kong. It's been so long since I've seen Funky Kong in anything. Okay. He is the owner of Funky's Flights, a rental service where he allows Donkey and Diddy to use his Funky Barrel to travel between worlds that they have either accessed or completed. So, yeah, he's the taxi.
Diddy Kong's really been shortchanged by having his name just shortened to Diddy all the time. They couldn't have known that was coming, but
it's unfortunate, right? Like it's just like how the name Epstein is tainted forever, or Hitler.
well,
so.
it's like when I'm reading the Expanse books to my girlfriend, like the main like technology that they use to get around in that is the Epstein drive.
Mm-hmm.
And, like they started writing these in 2011. I don't think they knew.
No,
that's just attached to it.
No, I don't think that the people who wrote The Expanse were in tune with the New York financier community. But
I hope not. I quite like those books.
But it's just like, I'm sorry, it's called the Epstein what again?
The Epstein Drive.
The Epstein Drive? Like that's the Lolita Express? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. Poor Diddy Kong.
You gotta clarify. That.
Yes, I do. Every single time you have to say the full name. Oh, man. All right. So that's what I've been playing lately. Any other video games that mean a lot to you that we haven't mentioned yet?
I'm going to say no, and I'll think of something in about 20 minutes and kick myself for not saying it.
That's fine. I mean, like, if it comes up organically, or if you just think of something suddenly that reminds you of it, you bring it up then.
Yeah.
No worries. All right. So we've talked about games that we like, games that we've been playing. Let's actually focus our discussion here and talk about the game that we ultimately settled on to talk about today. Spec Ops The Line, Rock Your Body in Time.
Along with his rise to worldwide stardom, Harry Belafonte became deeply involved in the civil rights movement. In 1956, he met the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and the two quickly became friends. He sent money to bail King out of the Birmingham City jail and raised thousands of dollars to release other imprisoned protesters. He financed the freedom rides, supported voter registration drives, helped to organize the March on Washington in 1963. A longtime anti-apartheid activist, Harry Belafonte hosted former South African President Nelson Mandela on his triumphant visit to the United States. In 1987, he was appointed a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. Belafonte has been a longtime critic of U.S. foreign policy, calling for an end to the embargo against Cuba and opposing policies of war and global oppression. Earlier this month, he led a delegation of activists, including actor Danny Glover and Professor Cornel West, to Venezuela to meet with President Hugo Chavez. Belafonte spoke at a rally in Caracas, where he commented on President Bush.
And no matter what the greatest tyrant in the world, the greatest terrorist in the world, George W. Bush says, we're here to tell you, not hundreds, not thousands, but millions of the American people, millions, support your revolution, support your ideas, and we are expressing our solidarity with you.
Harry Belafonte was standing next to President Chavez when he made those comments, and he didn't let up.
So, jump in the line, maybe is one of my favorite things Harry Belafonte said, but it's not my favorite Jane. Harry Belafonte, for those of you who don't know, in addition to writing wonderful songs like Deo, the Banana Boat song, and Jump in the Line, was also a civil rights activist. A lot of people know this, but some people don't, right? So while Jump in the Line, Rock Your Body in Time is one of my favorite vocal stems, I do have some other things that Harry Belafonte said that I want to shout out really quickly. One of them being in a 2006 speech at the Arts Presenter Members Conference, where he called the U.S. Department of Homeland Security the secret police, quote, "We've come to this dark time in which the new Gestapo of Homeland Security lurks here, where citizens are having their rights suspended," unquote. Or maybe this other quote from Harry Belafonte when he spoke at Duke University on MLK Jr. Day, also in 2006, comparing George W. Bush to the 9/11 hijackers by saying, quote, Bush has led us into a dishonorable war that's caused the deaths of tens of thousands of people. What's the difference between that terrorist and other terrorists, unquote. And of course, maybe my very favorite is from this interview he gave to Democracy Now! At the end of January 2006, because he was just on a tear in January 2006, and somebody had a sit-down interview with him saying,
It is quite curious that we can find billions and billions of dollars to sustain an illegal and immoral war in the Middle East, invading a country that did not provoke us, and moving into this conflict unconstitutionally, even though it had the approval of the Congress. Even the Congress violated the statutes of the Constitution. We were not invaded. There was no threat of an enemy. We unilaterally walked into a country that had no threat to this country, and we invaded it. That's against the Constitution.
You call President Bush a terrorist?
I call President Bush a terrorist. I call those around him terrorists as well. Condoleezza Rice, Rumsfeld, Gonzalez in the Justice Department, and certainly Cheney. I think all of these men and women sit in the midst of an enormous conspiracy that has been unraveling America for the last 8 years, 6 years. It is tragic that the dubious way in which this president acquired power should have begun to unravel the Constitution and the peoples of this country. Yes, I say that there are people in this country who live in terror. Poverty is terror. Having your social security threatened is terror. Having your livelihood as an elderly person slowly disappearing with no replenishment is terror. Students who are dropping out of school because there are no resources to keep us in school is terror. You find people in the streets watching drugs permeate our communities and destroy our young. It's a life of terror. And men who sit in charge of that distribution mechanism, which can help the American people overcome these problems, and refuse to do so, while giving the rich more money than they've ever dreamt of having, while turning around our institutions and redirecting resources from those who are truly in need to those who are already generously endowed, if not hedonistically so. It's a great tragedy.
When did he say this interview was from again?
January 2006.
We have words that attempt to give us moral cleansing, so that somehow we hold those responsible for crashing into the Twin Towers and killing over 2,000 American citizens in cold blood, which is an act of terrorism. People who have done that should be sought out and brought to justice. There's no question of that. But when we do what we have done, illegal war, going into the Middle East, bombing at will, and then hundreds of thousands of people get caught who are either maimed or over 100,000 who have already been killed, who are innocent men, women, and children. And we chalk that off to a thing called collateral damage, as if somehow that murderous thing that we are doing so cruelly and so inhumanely has no judgment before world opinion, that we are somehow righteous and above criticism and above the law. That is unacceptable, and that's what I speak out against.
So, Harry Belafonte. So, that's going to tie into our discussion for the video game that we are going to be talking about today, Spec Ops The Line. So, let's work, Senora. Spec Ops The Line is a cover-based third-person shooter developed by Germany-based studio Jaeger Development and published by 2K, a subsidiary of Take-Two Interactive. Spec Ops The Line is actually the 7th installment of the Spec Ops series, and if you haven't heard of or played a Spec Ops game prior to this, don't worry about it. Have you played a Spec Ops game before this, Jane?
It took me years after playing this to realize that it was part of a series. I had no idea that it wasn't just a little original game.
Yeah. 7 of these. So, most people have not played a Spec Ops The Line game before this, so don't worry about it. It wasn't a huge series, and this game is doing something completely different and was also considered a commercial failure. So this is far and away the best known title in the series.
Oh yeah, this seems to have killed it stone dead.
Yeah.
They'll never let us show that again. Not in a million years.
The game sort of closed the book on Spec Ops for a while. It's like I think we're done here. But we'll get to that. The last Spec Ops game had come out in 2002 for the original PlayStation. This was a dormant IP. Those were tactical shooter games, and this is more of a standard third-person cover shooter with the ability to give out limited tactical commands to your fellow Delta Force squad mates. Very little of the minute-to-minute gameplay of Spec Ops The Line would really stand out from other cover shooters or military shooters of the 7th-gen gaming era of the PS3 and Xbox 360. There's like some moments in the game that you can trigger environmental hazards, specifically sand, to either obscure yourself or to just basically pocket sand people, or to cause a sand avalanche that will fall on enemies and kill them brutally. But other than that, not really stand out in the actual gameplay elements, unless you disagree, Jane.
I think the moment to moment of like how you move around is like very unexceptional. I do think like some of the ways that the game allows you to interact with the world with those standard mechanics are very like weird and not what you'd expect from this kind of game.
That's fair, yeah. As we'll get into the way this game unravels and interrogates the mechanics that it has, I think that's what folds into the interactive part of this game and what makes that interesting. So, a bit about the game's development. Jaeger is a German studio, stereotype, but this was a multinational development team. For example, Corey Davis, an American, was the game's lead designer. Both he and Francois Coulon were credited as creative leads for Spec Ops The Line. Matthias Weiss was the game's art director, and Jason Flanagan was the art lead. Czech film and TV composer Eli Kumriel, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly or not, provided original music for the game. And the game, in addition to that original music, also prominently features licensed music in scripted moments from artists like Jimi Hendrix, The Black Angels, Mogwai, Deep Purple, Alice in Chains, Martha and the Vandellas, and Bjork. The game's audio lead was Andreas Wingel, and Alexander Marion was the audio designer. Jorg Friedrich was the level design lead, and there are a number of games, some of which we have covered on the show, like Outer Wilds or Inscription, that are incredibly difficult to talk about without spoiling the experience. I'm just now occurred to me that all these games that I've talked about were with other Moonshot creators like ourselves. Y'all really make it hard to talk about story here.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's just a pattern I'm noticing. Spec Ops The Line is a game that initially presents itself as something familiar before unraveling into something unconventional. I'm not going to spoil everything about the game here at the top, but spoilers are inevitable. If the game sounds intriguing to you, feel free to just pause the episode, find the game for yourself, and come back when you've had your fill. It is a fairly short game of 5 to 7 hours. Shout out to the Internet Archive once again. Proceed at this point at your own risk, because in a podcast where we talk about what this game means to the guest that I have on the episode, I feel it very restricting to limit what we can talk about here, and I'm sure that we will need in this case to actually just sort of open ourselves up to this discussion, because it's not going to quite make sense why Jane picked this game unless we can open that discussion up. So, like I said, proceed at your own risk here. Spec Ops The Line has two writers. There's Richard Piercy, a lawyer-turned-writer who has since worked as a narrative consultant on Resident Evil 7, has an additional writing credit for Dying Light 2, and narration and realization credit on Assassin's Creed Shadows. And there's Walt Williams. Prior to this, he had served as story editor on other 2K published games like BioShock 2 and Mafia 2, and has since worked as a writer on the 2017 Star Wars Battlefront 2, Marvel Midnight Suns, and the upcoming Wolverine game from Insomniac. Though it diverges heavily from its source material, the foundation of Spec Ops The Line's narrative is built from Joseph Conrad's 1899 novella, Heart of Darkness, in which a sailor traveling down an African river in search of a Mr. Kurtz witnesses the horrors of colonialism caused by the ivory trading company he works for. Spec Ops brings this premise to the 21st century. making its central character an army captain searching for a rogue lieutenant colonel and his battalion when they disappear after a series of deadly sandstorms that hit the city of Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Talking about this relationship with Heart of Darkness in a February 2012 interview with Digital Spy, Corey Davis says the following, quote, "The intriguing dark journey that the protagonist takes into the unknown is a great starting point for an exploration of what it means to be a human in difficult, trying, and unpredictable times. While our plot diverges strongly from Heart of Darkness, however, the questions we want you to ask yourself as you experience it are similar to the ones Joseph Conrad wanted you to ask yourself while reading his novella." Unquote. Walt Williams, in an interview with Games Radar, also cited the film Jacob's Ladder and the HBO miniseries Generation Kill as inspirations. The concept of a Lost Army battalion being swallowed up by a sandstorm was inspired by the legend of the Lost Army of Canvases. The game's inciting incident is built around world-historic sandstorms ravaging Dubai. These images of destruction came from Williams and Corey Davis's experience with natural disasters in Texas. For Davis, Dubai represents a kind of frailty. In an interview with Kotaku, he said, quote, "If you look at the imagery of Dubai from 10 years ago, it didn't exist. So being out there in the desert and realizing the expanse of this place, and it was built solely because somebody wanted it there and they had the money to do it. That place is fragile." Unquote. I'm not going to go into the whole history of Dubai, but the long and short of it is Dubai is often touted as the fastest growing city in the world. The tall buildings and skyscrapers associated with it, including the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, are very, very recent in its history. They're a result of their rapid urban development that began in the early 2000s and was made possible from a lot of serendipitous things happening at once. We'll say serendipitous, yeah. They diversified their economy. They attracted foreign investors and businesses due to their extremely, extremely lax tax laws. And vital to this is their access to very exploitable labor from the influx of refugees from conflicts like the Gulf War. We don't have time to get into that, though. Spec Ops The Line opens with narration from the game's protagonist, Captain Martin Walker. Ordinarily, I just play the audio clip, but because the backing track is Are You Still Into It by Mogwai, which I do not want to get copyright struck for, I'll just read it myself. "Was John Conrad the greatest man I ever served with? Well, I don't know. There was this one time in Kabul when he dragged my bleeding carcass half a mile to the evac chopper, so maybe I'm biased. But the facts don't lie. The man's a fucking hero. Remember when the first storms hit Dubai? You were probably safe and sound at home watching TV. Well, Conrad was leading the damn 33rd out of Afghanistan. Instead of coming home, he volunteered his entire battalion to help with the evac. But all you did was send a check. Rumor is Conrad was ordered to abandon the city. He defied that order, and the 33rd stood with him. Now, the official story's still hazy about what happened next. All we know for sure is the storms got worse. Much worse. Last thing we heard out of Dubai was that Conrad was leading a caravan of survivors out of the city. That was
6 months ago. Then, 2 weeks ago, we picked up this transmission.
This is Colonel John Conrad, United States Army. Evacuation of Dubai ended in complete failure. Death toll, too many.
Fade into the title card. Spec Ops The Line. Fade to black. Then, boom. Hard cut into a desert sandstorm where we're formally introduced to an elite Delta Force team composed of 3 Army soldiers who are tasked with the brief covert recon mission to confirm the presence of survivors in Dubai and then immediately radio for extraction. This team is led by Captain Martin Walker, the player character voiced by Nolan North. As evidenced by this narration, Walker served with Conrad in Afghanistan. Under Walker's command are First Lieutenant Alfonso Adams, the squad's heavy gunner, breacher, and tracker, and Staff Sergeant John Lugo, the wisecracking marksman, medic, engineer, and translator. As the trio reach the ruins of a sand-covered Dubai, they immediately find themselves in tense skirmishes with insurgents who mistake them for members of Conrad's damn 33rd. These insurgents are a CIA-led outfit organized into conflict with the 33rd.
God damn. All this stuff is CIA.
This must have been their safe house.
Hiding behind civilians? Not the manliest of tactics.
That's normal for the CIA.
Yeah, but killing U.S. soldiers isn't.
Confused and determined to find answers, Walker chooses to disregard his original orders and find Conrad, who has been publicly disavowed by the Army for treason. On the path to the Heart of Darkness, our Delta Force has continued skirmishes with the CIA, the damn 33rd, who mistake them for CIA, and discover a splintered group of the 33rd called the Exiled, who staged a failed coup against Conrad after witnessing their battalion committing atrocities on the locals. Blowback ensues. Spec Ops The Line was originally released in North America on June 26, 2012. Other games released in 2012 include Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Far Cry 3, Mass Effect 3, Assassin's Creed 3, Persona 4 Golden, Hotline Miami, Journey, Sleeping Dogs, The Walking Dead, a Telltale game series, and XCOM Enemy Unknown. But yeah, this is a 2012-ass list, isn't it?
It's the other game on there that you mentioned, The Walking Dead. When I was talking earlier about like trying to get into more PC games, this was like around the time I was doing that, and it was kind of The Walking Dead and a different game that you didn't mention, Thomas Was Alone. It's a platformer game about like AIs trying to like escape from a computer. It was the first time that I was really like, oh, a game can have like a really emotionally affecting story and it can make me cry. And then I moved on to Spec Ops The Line. I was like, oh, a game can have a really affecting story and can make me physically ill.
Yeah. No, yeah, the Walking Dead Telltale game, especially that first season, really, really, really good.
Yeah.
I haven't played Thomas Was Alone, but I'll have to check that out.
It's a really fun game.
Yeah, there is like a lot of, because the whole like discourse of video games being considered an art form is coming to a head here, right? And it was a really good time to make that point in a lot of ways, and also a terrible time commercially to talk about it because of the military industry complex being the most popular, what the public perception was seeing from this medium at the time.
Absolutely.
Your Battlefields and your Call of Duties.
Medal of Honor.
Oh yeah, Medal of Honor. Like there's just so much working against it pop culturally, but there are people who are really trying to work in this space and show how affecting and how artistic this medium can be, not just on the merit of it being like interactive and requiring artistry to make, but also just like how we can interrogate that relationship with the player and progressing narrative. So Spec Ops The Line, right? What made you decide on Spec Ops The Line as a subject of today's episode?
To be honest, I think a big part of it was when you asked me about it, I had just been listening to Blowback, which is a podcast that's like a kind of history about like American foreign policy. And the first season of that is basically entirely about the Iraq War. And so I was listening to that, and it had like prompted me to go and replay Spec Ops The Line, because I was like, oh, this is saying a lot about like specific atrocities that happened. And so I had Spec Ops brain poison when you asked me. And even like outside of that is like, it's a game that I played like about over a decade ago now, and I just like every few years I come back to it and I feel like I get something new out of it. So there was like the Blowback thing. There was also when I read Heart of Darkness while I was at university, and that's the book that the game is like kind of based on in a lot of ways, kind of loosely, but there are similarities.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's so much to the game. I feel like there's so much you can dig into that you would never quite get to the end of everything that it is trying to say.
No, I agree. There's certainly things in my research for this episode that indicate that it is conducive to actually do a second playthrough after you play it the first time to really unpack what the first playthrough revealed to you. I think the initial reflex after going through all that first playthrough is like, Jesus Christ, right? But once it unfolds and unravels and like what's actually happening is revealed to you, you just immediately want to go back. And that's, the hallmark of like a good reveal and narrative twist, right? You have to like go back and watch it again, not to make it make sense, right? But how it's recontextualized with that knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's still feeling, I guess entertaining isn't the right word, but like
cathartic
quality. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Effective. So you talked about playing this for the first time over a decade ago. Can you speak to that, like where you were in life?
So yeah, the first time I played this game, I think it was around like 2014, 2015, a few years after it had come out. And I was really in I'm going to have to show my ass a bit on the air here. I was in like a big, like early teenage, like pseudo-intellectual phase.
Sure.
I was very convinced that watching Zero Punctuation made me smarter than the average gamer. To give you an idea of how insufferable I was at that age.
Okay.
But the review that from Zero Punctuation of Spec Ops The Line that was like so much about like this is so different from other military shooters. This is like talking about like a lot of the problems with them. That appealed to me because again, I had this thing that I had not quite figured out yet, but like, oh, military shooters, stinky boy games, don't want to go near those. Ooh, I want to play something that trashes them. And then that's how I ended up like wandering into Spec Ops The Line and just kind of wandering out the back end of it with like a shell-shocked look on my face and not being able to speak for a day.
Yeah. It took me a little bit to get through this game despite the length, because there was just like a couple months where it's like, I gotta walk away from this for a second, man.
Yeah.
War is hell on the Steam Deck. That's funny you mentioned zero punctuation, because in my research for this episode, I was trying to get contemporary feelings about Spec Ops The Line.
Mhm.
And I did watch the Yahtzee review for Spec Ops,
Mhm.
and I was shocked at how complimentary he was of the game.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, his whole thing is like he is the, not contrarian, although like that is...
He definitely is.
he lends himself to that. Yeah, no, considering everything. But like the whole point is like offering the negative take about otherwise loved games. Like his whole thing is like, I'm gonna piss and shit on this and exaggerate things a little bit, but it's good if you just need a shorthand for like negative feeling. But no, he was very complimentary of the game, and like
I think if I recall correctly, it was actually his game of the year for 2012.
I should have watched that to like fully get that. But like there was a podcast he did in 2022 that was like a 10-year retrospective of Spec Ops The Line, and like
Oh.
he remained firm in his feelings about the game. So a curmudgeon like him holding the line after a decade of discourse and like remaining like positive in his praise and everything for the game, I think that at least says something. I'm not going to like put the
Yeah.
whole reputation of this game on like one person's opinion, but I do think it's like, it is an important like way of understanding this game's, I guess, impact. It was very different. It was definitely like a diamond in the rough of the shooter genre at the time. Like I did not play the game myself until prepping for this episode.
Mhm.
So now 2025, I played this game from 2012 for the first time, but I've always been aware of Spec Ops The Line. I didn't know the exact details, but I did know of its reputation, of how it was subversive and challenging the games that it resembles. That made it fascinating to me, but like I just did not get around to playing it in one way or another, especially because I wasn't playing a lot of military shooters myself at the time.
Yeah.
I played some, my older brother played a lot of Modern Warfare 2, and when I would hang out with him at his apartment, I would like play Modern Warfare 2 there. The number of shooters I was playing at the time when I was 16 years old was like not much.
That was something that like, even at the time when I first played it, there was a little bit of me that was like, what if I was the kind of person who played military shooters like normally? And I was always a little bit disappointed that I never quite got, because I went in kind of knowing that there was something weird about the game. I never had that experience that I think the game is kind of pitching towards it in some ways towards the start, where it's like, it is sucker punching you. You're not supposed to know that anything is wrong until it starts like really hitting the fan.
Mm-hmm.
It always disappointed me that that wasn't quite my experience of it. But on the other hand, it means I didn't have to play a bunch of Call of Duty games, so it probably works out.
Yeah, I mean it's hard, right? Because like if you are playing Spec Ops The Line now in 2025, you are at least aware of the reason you're going into it.
It's a very sensationalized reputation, I think.
Yeah, of course. Like I mean, like it is. We'll call it a video essay, darling. It's a well that people continue to return to. I'm not calling that hacky or anything like that, but it is just like it is definitely like an example of a game you can point to and how it interrogates our relationship with what like the responsibility, I guess, of the interactive space. I think there's as we'll get into, this incorrect labeling of it being an indictment on the player, like you are being held culpable for the actions it is quote unquote forcing you to make. But I think that is such like a narrow
Very,
view.
very wrong, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about this because this is something that's going to lend itself to a conversation about perspective as an artistic choice in the interactive space. But I just really think that this is a game that is smarter than the people who detract it for its feelings about agency and choice or whatever, right? Like the railroading conversation, as we'll get into shortly. But I'm glad I played it because I'm not getting my feelings from a discourse machine. That we're going to be having a conversation about how you and I feel about it instead of trying to defend it from haters, I guess.
Well, I mean, to stay on the discourse for a moment, I would even argue that this game is a lot smarter than some of the people who like it. We'll probably get into it more. I feel like there is such a like how I was when I first played it. Actually, there was a lot of like pseudo intellectualizing about the game, where it's very much focused on like, oh, this is such a psychological game. This is such like, oh, it's about like the toll that PTSD takes on the mind. And I think like there are elements of that in there, but I think people can like focus on that to the extreme detriment of talking about a lot of the other really interesting stuff the game is doing.
Yeah. Just the fact that a video game is influenced by fucking books, movies, Heart of Darkness, Apocalypse Now, Platoon, movies. What is this shit? No, oorah! Let me fire a gun. It's not even grabbing like obscure artistic influences, and at the time it was getting this kind of like pretentious labeling on it for doing the video game equivalent of asking you to know what you're eating. Maybe stop consuming mindlessly. Maybe if you're just like eating gray slop, you should ask yourself what are the ingredients of the slop. The health impact slop consuming long term might have on you.
It seems to be mostly grants from the Pentagon.
Yeah, like this Pentagon funded slop, this Department of Defense slop. Like, is do you think that this is like the symptom of a healthy culture and industry, that these are the options that we get every year? That the game's not really making an indictment on the player fully. It's making an indictment on an industry that makes so many games like it. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but let's talk about how you, the listener, can play this game today in a little segment I do every episode called No Country for Old Games. Before we talk about Spec Ops The Line, we have to talk about how readily available this game is, so those who are interested in playing it can check it out for themselves, because we're getting very, very close to talking about spoilers, people, on a very specific level. The subject of video game preservation means a great deal to me, because I believe that video games are an art form, and I think that they create experiences that leave some kind of impact on the people who play them. Unfortunately, though, this means very little to publishers who have historically struggled with keeping their older games available on modern hardware. And as time goes on, games that were once easily readily available to purchase and play become more and more difficult to acquire. So today we're going to rate this game on a scale of A to ARG. And ARG is obviously an expression of frustration and how hard it is to acquire a game, and not me covertly advocating for piracy. What the fuck are you talking about? Piracy? No, that's
you would never
illegal.
do that.
It's illegal, but this isn't real, so why should you care? Spec Ops The Line. So, Spec Ops The Line was originally released on PlayStation 3, PC, and Xbox 360, fuck Microsoft, on June 26, 2012. A version for Mac OS X was developed by Digital Tribe Games and released on March 13, 2014. The digital distribution platform GOG.com or GOG.com, never figured out the pronunciation for that, don't think I ever will. I don't know, man. Anyway, GOG put Spec Ops The Line on their website on May 13, 2019, almost a full 7 years after it originally released. Interesting thing about this release is how it did not have features that are in the original version of Spec Ops The Line.
Oh.
Spec Ops The Line originally released with multiplayer and had DLC that added a cooperative mode where you had specific missions that weren't part of the original game, kind of more of like horde mode stuff.
Yeah.
The GOG release did not have the DLC. The co-op multiplayer and DLC things are entirely grayed out. You can only pick the single player and options stuff on that main screen. This is very interesting because the lead designer of the game, Corey Davis, feels very strongly about the inclusion of multiplayer in the game. We'll say negatively. Vehemently disagreed with the inclusion of a multiplayer mode. It was added, apparently it was added at the behest of the publisher. It was not a choice of the developers to include DLC, to include multiplayer. And it was technically a separate studio that developed that multiplayer mode. And speaking of it, Corey Davis said the following, quote, "The multiplayer mode of Spec Ops The Line was never a focus of the development, but the publisher was determined to have it anyway. It was literally a checkbox that the financial predictions said we need it, and 2K was relentless in making sure that it happened." even at the detriment of the overall project and perception of the game. He calls it a low-quality Call of Duty clone in third person, the multiplayer mode. It tossed out creative pillars of the product, shed a negative light on all the meaningful things we did in the single-player experience. These are all quotes from him. He's saying these
Jesus
things.
Christ.
This is the guy who is considered the lead designer of the game. He said, one more quote from him, and I'm debating leaving this one in or not. The multiplayer game's tone is entirely different. The game mechanics were raped to make it happen, and it was a waste of money. No one is playing it, and I don't even feel like it's part of the overall package. It's another game rammed onto the disc like a cancerous growth, threatening to destroy the best things about the experience that the team at Jaeger put their heart and souls into creating.
So mixed feelings is what I'm getting.
Yeah, we'll say mixed. I understand where he's coming from. I would have changed a couple words there.
I
But,
maybe would not have used that word, no.
Yeah, but I can see the conviction of having basically something parasitically added, not because it was something that the developers wanted to do, but that the publisher insisted in order to meet metrics, right? This is 2K. 2K also published Bioshock 2. Bioshock 2 has a multiplayer mode in it. Do you remember that? Maybe not.
I never played Bioshock 2.
Bioshock 2 actually underrated, in my opinion. Never touched the multiplayer.
Well, this was a case of loyalty to the source material. Not many people know that Heart of Darkness has a little TTRPG tucked into the back of it that Conrad was made to put in by the magazine publishers.
Yeah. There was a capture the flag mode in Heart of Darkness that we don't talk about. Did you know that Francis Ford Coppola actually wanted to make an Apocalypse Now RPG?
Really?
Yeah, he started a Kickstarter to make an RPG.
Okay, I didn't realize it was that recent.
Yeah, no, he tried. It didn't take off, but Francis Ford Coppola's I think there's something here, guys. He was right. There was a game called Spec Ops The Line.
That's true.
I'm so curious how that would have shaked out. I am so fucking curious. But we'll say that I think that the exclusion of the multiplayer and co-op are very interesting in the context of Corey Davis's feelings about the multiplayer that was added on to the game.
Yeah, I feel like there's part of me that's preservation. I think you should leave those elements in a re-release. I also don't think anybody picking up Spec Ops The Line gives a single solitary shit about either of those two elements.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the inclusion of the multiplayer and the co-op, I know the co-op was added after release, which also makes fascinating choice to me, right? Because people already have feelings about the game and its impact, and then somebody's Horde mode. It's just right there, right? Hey, The Last of Us Part 2, think about that for a second. Speaking of putting a little Horde mode onto your game that's interacting with violence, but as I understand it, the Horde mode in The Last of Us Part 2 also rips. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, right? But with this and its exclusion, I agree with you about preservation, but there's also the constant push and pull with art, the intention of the artist, right? Which is also funny in the context of Apocalypse Now, because there are multiple cuts of Apocalypse Now. The theatrical cuts, I say cuts because there's a thing with including credits, ones that don't have credits, and how that even changes how people have interpreted the movie. It doesn't change any of the footage, just how the credits work. Then there's the final cut, which adds an extra half hour. There's Redux, which has deleted footage in it. And then there's the final cut, which is allegedly, ultimately, Coppola's preferred version of it. But I can't help but feel that these multiple cuts are confusing. And I don't know. Well, one, I don't know if this is Coppola's preferred cut. And also, does that matter?
Yeah, at a certain point, that kind of thing does come down to personal preference. What version of this movie would you prefer to sit through? What do you get out of the different versions?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to what is Francis Ford Coppola's singular directorial vision? We talked about Foucault already earlier, but
yeah, authorial intent isn't necessarily the most important thing, right? I know Francis Ford Coppola almost died making this movie, and making a version of the film that has more of what you almost died trying to make and almost killed people trying to make. You want to present alternative versions, right? But Coppola's of the same era of New Hollywood that Spielberg and Lucas, all of whom are friends, also made some, we'll say, controversial changes to their beloved films.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I love the special editions.
Yeah, we all love We all love Jedi rocks in Return of the Jedi, actually.
I love when the big brown bug man opens his mouth big and wide and you can see his uvula wiggling.
Yes. We all, nobody hates Jabba the Hutt just being grafted onto A New Hope digitally. Some people would even argue that saying A New Hope is revisionist because it was just called Star Wars when it came out.
My friend Erica yells at you if you call it A New Hope. She is insistent it is Star Wars. If you call it anything else, you're shilling for George Lucas.
The fact it's now called Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. We can't just say that, like, word of God is word of law. Sometimes you have to defy God a little bit. And this is all a side tangent anyway, because ultimately you cannot access this game anyway. You can't buy the GOG version. It's a moot point. Well, let's just say I have the GOG version.
Well, you bought that in 2019, I assume, and you've just been sitting on it ever since.
Yeah. Shout out to the Internet Archive. Shout out to the Internet Archive. So, on January 29th, 2024, Twitter user Wario64 reported that the game had been unceremoniously delisted from Steam. The quiet delisting came as a shock to everyone, including the game's designer, Corey Davis, who tweeted that same day, "Makes no sense, especially because the themes portrayed in at Spec Ops The Line are more relevant now than ever. Why has this happened at 2K at Steam?"
I don't know, man. I kind of think you answered your own question there.
Well, 2K gave a statement to PC Gamer, which was published the following day on January 30th. Spec Ops The Line will no longer be available on online storefronts as several partnership licenses related to the game are expiring. Which is to say, this game used a lot of licensed music and they're not interested in renewing those licenses. Jimi Hendrix costs money.
He does cost money. I said I was being very cynical about their reasons for getting rid of it before. I do think, like, this could be possible. This could be what happened. I also think, like, you have to consider what went into the decision to not renew those licenses.
Of course, right? It is a choice
to
delist a game instead of paying for the licenses again.
Or just, like, patching it so the music's out and it's, like, compromised but still available.
Right. That's what they were doing to the PlayStation 2 era of Grand Theft Auto games until then they just replaced them entirely with the awful remasters, quote unquote. Players who have purchased the game can still download and play the game uninterrupted. 2K would like to thank our community of players who have supported the game, and we look forward to bringing you more offerings from our label throughout this year and beyond. It was then removed from the PlayStation 3 store on January 30th, taken off of GOG on the 31st, and delisted on the Xbox Marketplace on February 1st. You cannot buy this game on a digital marketplace, and you cannot... It's gone. Mr. Kurtz is dead.
The horror.
It's gone. You can no longer legally play this game unless you already own a copy of it or buy it secondhand. If you did buy this game digitally, you can still continue to download and play it. Not a problem there, but SOL otherwise. So, like I said, shout out to the Internet Archive. This is a frustrating situation.
Yep.
How frustrating. How do you play this game when you want to replay it?
So, like I say, I bought it back in 2014, so I am one of those lucky players who can continue to download it uninterrupted, according to 2K.
So true. Yeah, like I said, I found a way to play this on my Steam Deck that I bought a few months ago.
And we'll say no more about it than that.
Yeah. And it's frustrating, right? Because this is a game that people should be able to play. And I think renewing the licenses is a small price to pay when you are a subsidiary of Take-Two Interactive, who is also the conglomerate that published the single most profitable video game product of all time, Grand Theft Auto 5, which is its own ecosystem and economy unto itself. But what do I know? What do I know about business? What do I know about money? What do I know about the video game industry?
It reminds me of there's a big thing in like book publishing at the minute about like book publishers want like an author who has like 100,000 followers on TikTok already and is able to like shill their book to that audience. And it's like, but you're a publisher. That your job is to handle that side of things. And the same with like Spec Ops. It's like, well, you're the publisher. You should be handling the licensing fees. You shouldn't just be like delisting the game because you don't want to pay them. Like that your end of the deal is that you handle that stuff.
Right. It's ridiculous to me. Like, I know that Spec Ops is considered to be like a AA video game in terms of scale, scope, and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just unfortunate. how licensing agreements are this thing that just get in the way of video games in a way that is certainly troubling for a lot of movies and television shows. There are things that never got physical releases because of the musical licensing agreements. I think about Malcolm in the Middle as an example. It's just frustrating, especially in the way that it just happens with video games. And this is a game that has this cult following, right? The PS3 version of the game holds a 77 out of 100 on the review aggregation website Metacritic. Going back to talking about the multiplayer grafted onto this game, I wonder what its reception would have been like if it didn't have a whole feature that was bad. But there's much more to a game's legacy than its review scores anyway. And the fact that this game didn't sell well and was a commercial failure by Take-Two or 2K's standards is immaterial, right? The legacy of a game isn't secured through how many copies it sold and what scores it got. It's about the impact it had on the people who played it. So let's get into that, Jane.
Sure.
Welcome to Total Depravity, the religious studies edutainment show that's less debauched than the theology joke title would imply. I'm Vivian Wheeler, better known as Wheels. They say you're not supposed to talk about death, politicians, or religion at the dinner table, and those first two are depressing and boring. But religions are some of the most bizarre and enduring things humans have ever created. Join me and my wonderful guests as we take you on a video presentational journey from zero to expert in some of the strangest corners of religious history, like the enigmatic Book of the Watchers, the now extinct world religion Monotheism, or the disastrous story of Shabtai Tzvi's claim to be the Messiah. If you're a Moonshot patron, search the Patreon feed for Total Depravity to watch now, or if not, be patient. Edutainment favors those who wait.
Jane, what do you like about Spec Ops The Line? And what does this game do that you wish more video games would do? And spoilers are open. You can spoil this game all day and night.
I think, one of the biggest things I've come to like about this game, and, originally what I liked about it was just haha, it's taking a shot at those stinky military shooters. What's really stuck with me is just, the little things about this game. One of the most impactful moments, I think, in terms of, illustrating this, is, early on, when you are still in this is just a random cover shooter section of the game. It's taken a bit of a turn because you've had to start shooting at the American soldiers, but it's still kind of oh, they're traitors, it's fine. There is a moment where you are in that refugee camp near the start, and you are sent to run around the side to do a flanking maneuver. As you're doing that, you go into a little darkened area, and a little old woman tumbles out of a shack and runs at you, panicking. And if you are like me, if you are twitching and not really sure what you're doing the first time you're playing through this game, you see a person running towards you, you aim down the sights, and you fire. And the game doesn't, grey out the cursor when you do that. It doesn't, refuse to let you fire. It lets you shoot this person. And then, it doesn't say anything about it. Walker never mentions it. There's no dialogue that acknowledges it. It's such a sinister little, he shot a civilian and he's just kind of hoping that he can get away with it. It's those tiny little details that the game has that are just so sinister and have such appalling implications.
Yeah.
That it doesn't even dwell, it just leaves you with. I think it's such an effective part of the game's horror.
There were a lot of games around this time, or a number of games, we'll say, that took a cynical tone about violence and you should feel evil for even playing this kind of type of games, I guess, your Kane and Lynch 2 or the Army of Two video games. Those are just nasty video games. Kane and Lynch 2 is just super hyper cynical, right? It's just the way that it uses its documentary style format to really ground you in the cynicism and the depravity and vulgarity of the world. It is wearing what it is about on its sleeve. Spec Ops' approach is less, I'm not trying to say judgmental, I guess, because that's not even the word, right? It just approaches it as a come as you are situation. It's not trying to tell you how you should feel about this right away. It is hoping the feeling sets in about it. And
yeah, exactly.
In, I think, is it Modern Warfare 2 that has no Russian? Yeah, it's Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. It's like the fact that you can just like fire on like a whole group of innocent civilians is shocking. It's vulgar. It's cruel. It's the fact that it's like hundreds of people that you can kill or not kill because it's optional, right? But
Yeah.
like just given the option, it's so outward with it that like it just becomes numbing.
It was such a huge part of the game's marketing to like drum up all this outrage about no Russian.
Yeah, and frankly, I think it's cynical. It was cynical in its application, and
Yeah.
I think it's hollow. I fuck the Call of Duty series, honestly. Fuck Activision, fuck Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. It's the way that this like the ramp up of interrogating this like military industry complex and a military entertainment complex in this game. It doesn't do it from the word jump. There's certainly a moment in this game where you cross the event horizon, but there's certainly like a pathway to that. It doesn't come from nowhere.
Yeah. It's not like a sudden turn. I think even what I like about that moment so much is like because of how early it comes in the game, you can't blame it on Walker's unraveling mental state, the terrible circumstances they're stuck in, like, oh, we had to make a hard choice. It's when he's still like acting mostly within his purview as like a member of the US military. This seems like a normal thing that happens to him.
Yeah. If it were a new situation for him, it'd be something they remark upon, right? The idea that they're firing on US military people. It's like they're the damned 33rd being a military unit, right? They are yelling, and like the fact that the damn 33rd are shooting at them because they think they're CIA, right?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is happening? And they have to keep yelling, we're not CIA, as they're firing at them. This is weird. We've never shot white people before. We've never shot our Americans before. This is fucked up. That's new to them. But the treating of the local population as collateral. I didn't shoot this particular person. I didn't think to. But I didn't know that they would not remark upon it really if you did just kill this person, which speaks to like
no acknowledgement.
It's normalized to them.
I think it also sticks out because there is so much in the game that does have contextual dialogue. It feels like a deliberate choice to not comment on it.
Yeah. Especially because like the way these characters unravel, they wear their feelings about every single situation on their sleeve, their doubts, their worries, their concerns, because they have this rapport, their relationship, they're going through their own moral crises and feelings about this stuff.
Yeah.
And these are not privates. These are army men who have served tours before. Walker was in Afghanistan. We did not do moral things in Afghanistan as a country. No, fuck no.
I think it's so interesting that the game is entirely about veterans of the war in Afghanistan. It doesn't... I've played it through a couple of times. I'm pretty sure that the Iraq War is not mentioned once. It's such a deliberate choice in a game that is so critical of the US military to be like, you know, at the time there was this kind of dichotomy of like the good war in Afghanistan and the bad war in Iraq. The bad illegal one, and then the one where we're liberating the population and helping people and looking for the Taliban.
Yeah.
And I think this game being like, all the people doing this awful shit were in Afghanistan, I think it's refusing to take that out. It's refusing to be like, well, this is just the one bad thing that they did.
Like the choice of setting it in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, is a very loaded choice because
definitely
the UAE is considered a US ally.
Mm-hmm.
As a country, governmentally, UAE has good relations with the United States government.
Yep. We do a roaring trade in $400 million jumbo jets.
No, it's in many ways the history of the UAE over the last 50 years is a stark parallel of the United States in ways that people much smarter than me would be able to articulate. But setting this story, this conflict in an area that at the time and at this present time of recording in a state that is a U.S. ally is loaded, right? Because it is this thing where we're taking out the acceptable targets, we're taking out present day or contemporary conflict. It is using the setting as like it's loaded. Like Dubai is a city of excess and ostentatious wealth that reflects the consumerist, capitalistic impulses that the West has. It's a very, very familiar city despite the desert setting. And the fact that almost every single target in the game is a United States soldier. You're not shooting at, well, it is not required for progression for you to knowingly shoot at the local population or terrorists, as the United States would label them. I mean, that's just all very loaded stuff. It is trying to remove the diciness of, and also comment on, it's not trying to remove like the diciness, it's trying to comment on like the acceptable targets of warfare.
It's also, I think, it's so much of what you're saying. Like, yeah, it's if you're playing this game in like 2012, you're so used to seeing just like violence happening in like Iraq or Afghanistan, or more often in made-upistan, in like whatever country they've invented for the game. So setting it in Dubai is a very like stark choice in that way, to be like, well, what do you think when we're doing all this violence against people we haven't manufactured consent for you to be okay with us shooting? I think it's also it's taking and running with a theme from like Heart of Darkness, which is Conrad's like we'll say like fairly racist paranoia about like how imperialism was going to like bring uncivilized African culture back into the imperial core and destroy the West, basically.
Right.
That is like a thing that Conrad is worried about, and it's one of even in a book that drops the N-word as many times as Heart of Darkness does, it's one of the most racist things in that book. Spec Ops is taking that in an interesting direction. It's kind of doing like the Imperial boomerang thing in a lot of ways. It's showing how like the instability that you create in somewhere like Afghanistan will eventually like it comes back up the chain. It spreads back up to somewhere like Dubai, which is like a US ally that was kind of like supportive of the war on terror in a lot of ways, and showing how like this kind of stuff just like it spreads and it gets worse the more you do it.
Yeah, there's many reasons for the setting to be the way that it is. I think keeping it in a Middle Eastern country makes clear like what industry and what like apparatus we are critiquing and criticizing, it being the military entertainment complex. Because even if you do set something in somewhere desert, foreign country, brown, we know what you mean, right? We know what this is representative of, even if you're not referencing Al Qaeda specifically or ISIS. We know what you mean. Like you can't do like, no, this could be anybody. It's like, no, man, no. No, you're using green and black and red, like the colors that are broadly associated with Arab nations.
Yeah.
You can't do that. We know what you mean. We know what you mean. You can't depoliticize something that is inherently loaded. With Spec Ops The Line here, like the setting it in Dubai, like this was a country that is, the developers were able to go to Dubai. They were able to actually like get reference documents set up with like the getting pictures and videos so they could help design for the levels. And the developmental justification they used for setting it in Dubai had to do with verticality. The towering skyscrapers in Dubai lended itself to this ability to continue to descend. And thematically, this is reflected in how the level design, you're almost always going down in Spec Ops The Line, even though it doesn't logically make sense if you really try and track it. No matter how far you progress in the game, there's always a way that Walker will find a way to continue to descend.
There's always a zip line that will take you farther down. Even if it looks like you're kind of standing on the ground, you're not.
Yeah.
That I can go lower.
There's a big sequence towards the middle of the game where you're falling off a skyscraper, and somehow still you're still doing zip lines that are taking you down and taking you down and taking you across, because you don't really initially interrogate that, because the whole thing with the sandstorms coming into Dubai is how like sand is just covering everything. So you could just keep going down, like things have been leveled. There's more sand to go under. There are more buildings under the sand. There's just so much sand. But no, you really like try and interrogate. It's like, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, but it is intentional. It is thematically paralleling like the person's descent into madness with actual verticality. So there is that, developmental justification to tie into a thematic thing that doesn't necessarily align with any political ideology or any current events. But still, I mean, the fact that they had access to the UAE and Dubai as a setting to go and take pictures in, that's a whole thing, right? They didn't need military protection to go to Dubai, because again, Dubai is encouraging of international tourism and want American tourists. I mean, there's a whole evil tourism apparatus and industry within the UAE for all that.
Walker was drawn in by the matcha Labubu Dubai lattes.
Yes, he wanted to. Just like screaming commands, "Give me a fucking middle white chocolate, Labubu down." It's they're doing a lot of clever and creative things, and they're talking around it in development. But everything about Dubai and the United Arab Emirates is a fallout of the British occupation of that region.
Sorry.
Hey, I mean, like, I'm American. I mean, like, I think we're starting to lap y'all. I think we're starting to lap y'all.
That's possible.
And like the subsequent decades post occupation after they secured their independence, and how they are still a form of American soft power in the region of the Middle East. That's loaded. It's very loaded, and the westernized appearance of a ravaged apocalyptic setting covered in sand. It's an image. It is an image about this war and the complicity of this Americanized Western encroachment on this region.
It's also like, it's an image that is so loaded. If I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure this game was banned in the UAE.
Yes. In 2012 specifically, a law was passed after this game had come out, but like any criticism of the UAE or Dubai was banned within the region, and showing Dubai ravaged by a natural disaster was enough to ban the game from the UAE.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, again, like the reason we were able to depict certain things in apocalyptic manners in the rest of the world, right? Again, it doesn't work setting a thing in military America unless you're trying to, like they did when Far Cry 5 sets itself in America at war, right? Ultimately it's just hollow. Like it's like gesturing at the divided nation in Trump term 1 America, but it's hollow.
Yeah, it never follows through on anything about like the militia movement more substantially than just like, these guys are kind of hippy dippy and a bit Christian.
No, but this American entitlement to the world and its access, whether that's in the global South or in the Middle East or wherever, just like this free movement. Like, we can do whatever we want, and like any resistance we meet, we have the manpower to overpower you anyway. So if we really want something, we will go through the effort of doing it. It's just the optics that might stop us, and that's becoming increasingly untrue as we become a more cruel, overtly cruel nation that has dropped the pretense of civility, which ties into the themes of Apocalypse Now and Heart of Darkness, right? Like imperialism as the appearance of dignity and civility, and this liberal idea of like be best, versus like these primitive natives that are regressive and bad and evil because they're not like us or match our norms.
And up against the reality of just like stealing shitloads of ivory and rubber.
Exactly, right? Because we have the better technology, because we are the more advanced civilization by parameters that we define and set, we are entitled to this area and this land and this region. And the people who empathize with these people or join these people are part of these people. Their resistance to our cause of spreading what we are everywhere without prejudice. Like in Heart of Darkness, right? It's like the British imperialism of the Congo region. And with Apocalypse Now, it is the it's America just completely raising Vietnam and into Cambodia. From the beginning of Apocalypse Now, we have these whole things where like they go after a camp simply because it is a good surfing spot.
Yeah, we'll pick your boat up and put it down like a baby right where you want it. This is the first of the night. Air cav, son. Air mobile. I can take that point and hold it just as long as I like, and you can get any place up that river that suits you, young captain. Hell, a 6-foot peak. All right, take a gunship back to the division. Lance, go with Mike, let him pick out a board for you, and bring me my Yater spoon, the 8.6.
I don't know, sir.
What is it, soldier?
Well, I mean, it's pretty hairy in there. It's Charlie's point.
Charlie don't surf!
Charlie don't surf.
Jesus.
Yeah, like that's where that quote comes from. It's not necessarily it's just a good spot. It's just a good surfing spot, and Charlie isn't using it to surf, so we can go there and do it. Charlie meaning Victor Charlie, which is VC Viet Cong.
Right, okay.
These primitive people don't even recognize what they have here. We can use it for surfing. That rules. We're the dignified ones. We're the ones who actually know what's valuable here. It's fucked up. And that's the beginning of the film. That's before they even continue to descend deeper and deeper into this fucking Dante hell inferno.
And I think that's maybe like kind of an interesting point of divergence Spec Ops has with Heart of Darkness and Apocalypse Now.
Mm-hmm.
because there is not really that emphasis on specific resource extraction in Spec Ops.
No.
Spec Ops is much more like, it's a survival situation.
Yeah.
But I think it's still like, it kind of drives that idea kind of implicitly through like, the damn 33rd were originally there to help. They were supposed to like evacuate the city. It's supposed to be like an example of good US interventionism.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes so badly wrong that by the end, the 33rd are just like randomly shooting civilians for water.
Yeah, by like neutralizing the setup, right? Dubai is an American ally. The conflict is started by a natural disaster. It is creating basically being very generous to the starting line that U.S. interventionism gets. There's no civil war. It is a natural disaster in an allied nation that is acceptably Western in terms of aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to send the army in to evacuate the non-rich people who are able to flee Dubai immediately, and leaving the lower underclass and slave class to die in the storm. We'll send these Americans and they'll save these people who were abandoned, and immediately they make the situation worse. And then they have to send the CIA in to deal with the situation made worse by the military. And then the CIA and the damn 33rd are firing at each other. It doesn't mirror how conflict actually shapes out in that region at all. What are you talking about? CIA versus the military? We have to send in a cleanup crew to clean up the cleanup crew.
To be fair, it is usually the other way around. The CIA will destabilize everything and then the army has to go in.
Yeah, it's like the commentary, right? Even in a situation where they could have easily been the good guys, they fuck it up so badly that they cause a civil war amongst themselves and the people who they were trying to save. And you have to send in this third crew to clean it up, and they're like, well, we're the fucking heroes of this situation, so we can do whatever we want without prejudice. It is the entitled mind of the American soldier, despite the training that in America you get, that you're actually encouraged not to be a hero. You're supposed to be a good soldier, and a good soldier is not concerned with their own survival necessarily, but like you have to save the person next to you. Your devotion is to the person next to you, and then your troop, your battalion, the military branch you're in, and ultimately the country. There is no space for the external, and everything there is collateral damage in service of you, who shouldn't try and be a hero. It ultimately lends that whole like, well, I know what's best. I can be a hero. I can fix this. And in making it worse, every choice Walker makes the situation in Dubai substantially worse in material ways you can continue to observe as every level happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that I think the gameplay really plays into. I think the gameplay does something interesting where I think like a lot of the discussion of the game is around like, oh, it's a dissection or a condemnation of the mechanics of these kind of games. I think that's maybe true to an extent, but I think what it's doing in a really interesting way is it's using those as a stand-in for doctrine.
Yeah.
Like what Walker feels that he should be doing, or maybe has been taught by Conrad that he should be doing in these kind of situations, is that like the options the game gives you are the things that Walker is thinking to do.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite examples of this near the end of the game, it's right after Lugo gets lynched by a crowd of people, and you are confronted by this like angry, shouting crowd who are like shoving you, they're throwing things at you. If you try to walk through them, they will like attack you and like probably kill you. And you're just kind of backed up against a wall by all these people, and you have a gun in your hand. The thing is, you can actually resolve the situation without killing anyone. You fire into the air, it scares everyone off, they run.
Yeah.
But the game does not prompt you to do that.
Mm-mm.
You are stood there with an immediate threat in front of you with a gun in your hand, and it's not just a case of like, oh, it was a tragedy, it's like people make bad decisions, they don't think properly, and because of like the way they've been trained, the way that they've been directed to deal with these situations, Walker can't put down the gun and talk to people. He hasn't been taught to do that.
Yeah.
He's a Delta Force guy. He's gonna probably, in a lot of cases, when people are playing it, fire into that crowd.
Yeah. The game's relationship with choice is different from the traditional presentation of choice in video games. The video games have traditionally, stereotypically, have a very binary, telegraphed way of communicating choice to you. Do you want to do blue or do you want to do red? Right? And especially in this generation of games, BioShock saved the system.
We were just talking about Mass Effect.
Right, Mass Effect. Mass Effect also had green. Don't forget green at the end.
True, it does have green. Or shoot the kid.
What if it were purple?
Up next, we got Coral Rove. Let's see it purple. Zig Heil, Zig Heil, Zig Heil!
Nothing about this game is that intense.
But like BioShock, do you want to save the baby or eat the baby? And the games, even if they do give you more complicated choices, like there's no benefit to eating the baby in BioShock, right? Because like ultimately you net more of the resource you extract from eating the baby by saving the baby in the long run, which is a commentary of choice in and of itself, I suppose. But it's just boring and like it barely contributes anything to what the story's trying to tell you. It changes the ending cutscene, whatever. This game's way of presenting choice is it's going to take you to ultimately the same conclusion, and there are endings determined by your final choice at the very end of the game. But it's the choices that you make are futile and vain choices that you are people would criticize as being railroaded into. But the broader commentary of that is you're not supposed to be here in the fucking first place.
Yeah.
You're not really truly being railroaded. You set yourself up for this, and your limited thinking, the pride of this situation, because immediately it's like the game technically should have ended after the second mission generously.
Yeah.
You're literally just scouting. You're scouting. You evacuate the people that you are able to find, report back what you saw, and then we'll send in the real guys. You're literally 3 guys. You're a Delta Force. You're surveying. Once you have the information you need, get the fuck out of there. But no, they're just like, no, we got to do something about this. Guys, we got to do something about this. And it's that continued vain, selfish, false sense of heroism that continues to drive the conflict forward. You're not supposed to be there in the first place. America had no business being here in the first place.
Yeah.
You are playing a military shooter set in the modern day. There is literally no reason for you to be here. It's not just like turn the game off if you don't want to make the choice. It's like the fact that you gravitate towards this style of game to indulge in a power fantasy, and then you get mad that you can't make the correct decision or a better decision than the ones presented to you. Too fucking bad, buddy. You are in the U.S. military. You're pretending to be a U.S. military soldier in your leisure time. This is what you wanted to do. These are your options. If you were given these orders, you wouldn't be able to defy the order without dying, right?
Yeah.
So it's like either make the choices that we present to you or die. That's truer to life than anything that Call of Duty would give to you. I mean, that's not a game of a morality system, right? But like, sorry, you can't save the baby. You can scare. It's like, no. I wasn't sure like what the invisible choices were in the game. I'm sure there's some choices that I missed, right?
There are some that like it took me a few playthroughs to notice that I even had a choice.
Yeah, I think the first time the game telegraphs a choice to you is like when Lugo wants to do one thing and Adams wants to do something different. It's like, let's save the CIA guy by just coming in guns blazing versus Adams is, let's be stealthy about this. Let's
save the hostages they've taken and leave the CIA guy to die potentially, which he does.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I know you just said that was very telegraphed. That was one of the ones where it took me like 2 playthroughs to realize, oh, right, Lugo kind of walks off over there and I can follow him if I want to do his choice.
Okay. Maybe like telegraphed to me, but it's like I'm really listening to dialogue of like, I'm noticing Adams going into the other direction where he's like, I'm going to go sneak and kill these guys if you want to come with me. But Lugo is the louder voice of the two. So I think the game is sort of gesturing like, let's just go in guns blazing. But since there's actual like chatter happening versus like either like something being happening in the middle of gunfire or whatever, it just was presented differently than the previous and sometimes even later choices, quote unquote, are given to you.
Yeah.
You, take care of the rest of them.
Yes, sir.
Still have nothing to say, Agent? Maybe if you understood the hell you put these people through. Set them up.
Walker, over here. We've got to save these civilians.
Now's our chance, Walker. We got an open path straight to gold.
What about the civilians? We got to save them.
Look, I know it sucks, but Gould's vital to our mission. The civvies aren't.
Our mission is to rescue people.
Please, Captain. We need Gould. Let me take the shot.
We can't let these people die, Walker. You know it's the right call.
Begin.
There's the choice you said with what you think you're being guided to do is to shoot into the crowd to scatter it, however you want to rationalize it in your head, right?
There is absolutely also going to be like some people whose knee-jerk response is doing that as revenge for them killing Lugo.
Right. It's the crime of passion. Like Adams is giving you his opinion on the situation, which is I want to fucking fire into these people for killing Lugo. And of the three characters, Lugo seems to be the one that would probably garner the most sympathy from you.
Yeah.
He's basically the kid of the group, for whatever that's worth.
He's the one who is the most vocally like, what we are doing is wrong, we need to stop.
Yes. What people assume is like, oh, I have to fire into this crowd. Why would the game make me do this, right? You can also melee an individual person, I think, and that will scatter the crowd. You don't have to.
Or again, just fire into the air. They'll run if you do that.
Yeah, I fired into the air. I didn't shoot anybody. And that scatters it, right? You're the commanding officer of the crew. Adams is not going to do anything independent of you. Up to the very end of the line, even well past the point of anybody having to listen to you, you're the authority.
Yeah, he still defers to you.
This is your power fantasy. This is your responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
These assholes ain't stopping, Walker. They're boxing us in. Damn it, Lugo! You better fucking pray he makes it. Let me take him, Walker. Sir, permission to open fire. I need you to give the word. Walker, give me the fucking word.
There are people who are like sort of able to remove the political things in this game to just sort of talk about agency and what the illusion of choice is in video games ultimately, which are curated experiences, right? The way people are saying, oh, it's a commentary on video games themselves, and the political part is secondary to that. And I think it's a bit of all of this is connected, right?
You can't criticize like the way that video games are portraying this kind of like militarized violence without also criticizing the fact that the violence is happening in the first place, and video games need to be made to manufacture consent for it.
Yeah. The broader things with like the video game meta commentary and choice within these things. I mentioned earlier that the main character Walker is voiced by Mr. Video Game Man Nolan North. Nolan North famously portrays Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series, among other characters.
Yeah.
Nolan North is so prolific in the video game industry, even at this stage in time, that I'm going to read to you the list of games he was in just in 2012 alone.
Oh, God.
Uncharted Golden Abyss, which was the PS Vita Uncharted game, where he plays Nathan Drake once again. Armored Core 5, Kinect Star Wars, Lego Batman 2 DC, Lego Batman 2 DC Superheroes, which came out a week before Spec Ops The Line.
Holy shit.
Spec Ops The Line itself. The Amazing Spider-Man video game, which was released the same day as Spec Ops. Transformers Fall of Cybertron, Guild Wars 2, Skylanders Giant, Team Fortress 2, which I believe the robots update was around this time. Assassin's Creed 3, Lego The Lord of the Rings, Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Playing both sides that way, see who comes out on top. Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified, which was the mobile port, I believe. And then PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale once again as Nathan Drake. So this is just 2012.
And I played a couple of these games. I played like Uncharted. I'm sorry, you numb my brain. I played a ton of games that Nolan North has been in, is the point.
Yeah, Lego Batman, Lego Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely played those ones. I don't think I've ever heard him give a performance like the one he gives in The Line. He starts out in like his very generic kind of like protagonist guy voice.
Not to argue, but this ain't exactly within our mission parameters.
Yeah, well, our mission went from recon to rescue the minute we found U.S. soldiers butchered.
Bucking orders. I like it.
Orders ain't worth following if it means leaving people to die, Lugo. Conrad's still alive. I think he is. I know he'd agree with me.
And then the further he gets in the game, the more fucking unhinged he sounds. Like he's screaming and he's swearing, he's like shouting like fuck you at people as he like shoots them in the head or is like stamping on them.
Man, I'm through with this shit.
Fuck you! At least I'm doing my job! You're the one who's fine, just sitting back, waiting for things to unfuck themselves! You think I like watching these people die, huh?
You think I won't carry this shit to my fucking grave? Stand down! Both of you! Stand the fuck down! The fuck is wrong with you two? We're in the middle of a fucking war zone, and you're fighting in the dirt like a couple of goddamn kids! You are Delta operators. Fucking act like it! All right, then. We good?
Yeah.
Lugo!
Yes, sir.
Good. Now let's keep moving.
Like talking about the interactive part of this, right? Like you can see him descend into barbarism functionally, and you're doing the same actions.
Animations are mostly the same.
The animations are mostly the same. It is the tone that changes, the attitude that changes. From the very first minute you're given control, which is you're caught in media res opening where you're firing a minigun from a helicopter and shooting other helicopters down that are flying around. That's near the end of the game, but it starts you there as like the framing. And then cutscene establishing the setting, and then it goes back to 2 days earlier. And their language that they're using is like very tactical, like I need you to take out this guy, please take out this guy, or whatever. And it's like you've got like
Tango down.
Right. They're using the clinical language that they're used to in a military setting to commit these violent acts.
Lugo, shoot her on the roof! Got it! Taking him out! Tango down! I think we're clear. Let's move up, but keep your eyes peeled.
But as the situation gets more and more desperate and their mental states are declining and things are getting more and more fucked up and they are realizing their culpability in the violence they're inflicting, that compartmentalized barrier just collapsing, they just get more desperate in their commands as the game progresses until they're just like, can you get that fucking guy off there? And the affirmatives just being like simple yes or like fucking killed him.
Kill is fucking confirmed! Got the son of a bitch! He's dead! That's one! That's another one! Got the fucker! Fucking stay down! Round in hell, motherfucker!
And the animations do change when you do melee takedowns now, where you are...
Oh, true. Yeah.
Yeah, like at first, like you're very efficiently taking guys out, but like when you do melee takedowns later in the game, like you're just bashing them with like your weapon. It's brutal and excessive.
And the game very, like, I think it's a very clever game design choice. It pushes you towards that. Because you, obviously, as the game goes on, it gets harder. There's less and less ammunition. So you are kind of, a lot of the time, like, fighting very close quarters, you're shooting people, like, right in front of you. You're having to melee because you don't have any bullets. And so it is just this, like, the abstraction that, like, these characters have from the violence that they're doing, it breaks down so severely.
Yeah. It's fucked up beyond all repair. It's gone foobar. It's entirely their fault. Like you break it down and you rewind to how they got there in the first place. They just entered every situation thinking that they were the good in the situation, and not the case. When you think like, oh, the damned 33rd, they're like kidnapping these locals and sending them to a camp.
All right, we need to keep moving before more soldiers show up.
You mean more American soldiers?
Rogue soldiers. It's clear the 33rd is no longer acting as part of the U.S. Army.
So what do we do?
Well, if we're gonna sort this out, we need to find John Conrad.
How's that help? You just said the 33rd were rogue.
Conrad wouldn't abandon his duty. The 33rd may be hostile, but I guarantee the colonel isn't part of it.
How can you be sure?
Because I know the man. Now get that open.
Not a problem. We got a situation.
33rd's rounding up civilians. Why?
Oh, shit.
You're gonna kill them all.
Can't let that happen, Walker.
We're not going to.
Then let's hurry up and get down there. Follow me.
Later on in the game, the white phosphorus sequence is what it's the point of no return in the story, right? It's the point that everyone points to is like, this is the darkest moment of the game. Everything is a rapid descent into hell from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's just like this action that you can no longer rationalize. This white phosphorus, which was established earlier when you saw the soldiers using white phosphorus earlier, like one of these kits.
You walk through a killing field where just like a bunch of people are dying of white phosphorus burns.
And you can see it's not quick process.
Ew.
It burns into their flesh and organs and kills them very slowly, and they're collapsing onto the ground, and you're just walking through this environment like, what the fuck? What are we doing here? These monsters. It's gross and disgusting and horrible that we would ever do this. And then the opportunity arises for you to use white phosphorus on these soldiers.
All right, Lugo, what are we up against?
An army? Give or take?
No shit.
How are we getting through this?
This might help.
Fine, set it up.
You're fucking kidding, right? That's white phosphorus.
Yeah, I know what it is.
You've seen what this shit does. You know we
might not have a choice, Lugo.
There's always a choice.
No, there's really not.
You aim, Walker. We'll fire.
Okay, prepare to fire.
That in order?
Yeah, it is.
Fine. Launching camera.
Up there! On the balcony! We got intruders! Take them
Camera online, sir.
And it is a war crime to use white phosphorus in combat situations.
Yeah.
Famously in Fallujah, we talked about the Iraq War earlier.
Yeah.
You could watch the manufacturing of cassette happen in real time for why we were justifying the use of white phosphorus.
The U.S. government has now admitted its troops used white phosphorus as an incendiary weapon against Iraqis during the assault on Fallujah a year ago. White phosphorus is often compared to napalm because it combusts spontaneously when exposed to oxygen and can burn right through skin to the bone.
I know of no cases where people were deliberately targeted by the use of white phosphorus. Again, I did not say white phosphorus was used for illumination. White phosphorus is used for obscuration, which white phosphorus produces a heavy, thick smoke to shield us or them from view so that they cannot see what we're doing. It is used to destroy equipment, to destroy buildings. That is what white phosphorus shells are used for.
That was Lieutenant Colonel Steve Boylan speaking on Democracy Now! Last Tuesday, but the Pentagon was caught in a lie after it was revealed that an official Army publication called Field Artillery Magazine had disclosed the Army had in fact used white phosphorus as a weapon. The magazine, in its March-April issue, reported, quote, white phosphorus proved to be an effective and versatile munition and a potent psychological weapon against the insurgents in trench lines and spider holes. The magazine went on to report, quote, we fired shake-and-bake missions at the insurgents using WP, white phosphorus, to flush them out, and HE, high explosives, to take them out. On Tuesday, Lieutenant Colonel Barry Venable, another Pentagon spokesperson, admitted on the BBC that white phosphorus was used as an offensive weapon to target insurgents.
White phosphorus is a conventional munition. It's not a chemical weapon. They are not outlawed or illegal. We use them primarily as obscurants for smoke screens or for target marking in some cases. However, it is an incendiary weapon and may be used against enemy combatants.
Can you confirm then that it was used as an offensive weapon against enemy troops during the siege of Fallujah?
Yes. It was used as an incendiary weapon against enemy combatants.
There are suggestions here that if used in that way, an incendiary weapon such as white phosphorus would be against the various conventions governing the use of weapons during war. You disagree?
Cite the conventions.
The Chemical Weapons Convention.
Okay. Does it list white phosphorus as a chemical?
No, it doesn't, but it says a chemical weapon can be any chemical which through its chemical action on life processes can cause death, temporary incapacitation, or permanent harm.
But we're talking white phosphorus is an incendiary weapon, not a chemical weapon.
That was Pentagon spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Barry Venable being interviewed on the BBC. The Pentagon has defended its use of white phosphorus by claiming it's not a chemical weapon and that it was only used against Iraqi insurgents, not civilians. However, even this would have been illegal according to the Army's own rules of combat. In 1999, the Army published a handbook that read, quote, it's against the law of land warfare to employ WP against personnel targets.
George Monbiot, your column also mentions that the field artillery article was not the first mention of the use of white phosphorus, that there was actually some reporting by an embedded reporter at the North County Times in Southern California as early as April 2004. Could you talk about that?
Yes, I'll quote you from what he said. He was an embedded reporter with the Marines during the siege of Fallujah, which, as you say, took place in April 2004. And his article goes as follows. The boom kicked dust around the pit as they ran through the drill again and again, sending a mixture of burning white phosphorus and high explosives they call shake and bake into a cluster of buildings where insurgents have been spotted all week. Now, the key term there is into a cluster of buildings. In other words, again, they were not using this white phosphorus for the purposes of illumination or for the purposes of smoke screening, both of which are legal uses of white phosphorus in war. They were using it as a weapon in order to flush the insurgents out of those buildings. Doing so is in breach of the Chemical Weapons Convention.
And in both that article and in the field artillery, they keep referring to this mixture called shake and bake.
I believe it's a pun on some seasoning which you have in the United States, which you put on a chicken before you put it in the oven. And the idea is that you shake them out of their hiding place, and then you can bake them or kill them with high explosives, having shaken them out with your white phosphorus. The use of white phosphorus to do that is not legal.
And now Jeff Engelhardt, who is a former U.S. soldier.
Have you seen the effects of these weapons?
Yes. Burned bodies. I mean, it burned children and burned women. White phosphorus kills indiscriminately. It's a cloud that will, within, in most cases, 150 meters of impact will disperse, and it will burn every human being or animal.
There's a really good, you were talking about this game being a video essayist darling earlier. There's a really good video essay by Jacob Geller about like the way this game portrays white phosphorus and like how it's been used in like Iraq and how like Israel has used it in like Gaza.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, please watch the video and how it like he connects it to how it was used by the U.S. military in the Iraq War, and how the Israeli military has used it against Palestinians, and how it continues to be used to this day in this combat application to hurt innocent civilians as collateral damage in a way that they can try and deny despite the evidence being in front of us, which is what the character of the game does when he uses the white phosphorus.
And this was also like, this was part of my cynicism earlier about like, why did 2K refuse to renew the license for this game? Because if I recall correctly, there was a lot of stuff in the news around the time that the game was pulled from store shelves about the IDF using white phosphorus.
Yeah.
And it felt very pointed to get rid of a game that is such a like stark and condemnatory portrayal of using white phosphorus in that way.
Yeah, that is very likely the real motivating factor behind it, right? The game was delisted on January 2024, which would be 3 months into the Israeli bombardment of Gaza and its people. And at this point, like, we have been banging our head against the walls, yelling, we can see you deliberately destroying these hospitals and using these things to deliberately kill civilians and them trying to deny it or say like that wasn't the intended target, or actually Hamas did that. And also there was a bunker under there for Hamas and it was actually an acceptable military target. And it's like, no, you're constantly moving the goalposts. This is right out of the Iraq War playbook.
Yeah.
And nothing is being done about it, even though we can see it on the world stage. And it's because we never did anything about the war crimes we committed in Iraq, white phosphorus or otherwise. History rhymes. To that end, I wanted to take this time to share 5 different news stories since October 7th, 2023, in which Israel was reported to have used white phosphorus in a manner consistent with a war crime. Note that this is not every use of Israel doing this specific war crime, nor does it come close to representing the total number of war crimes committed since 2023. The next 4 minutes of audio may be a bit repetitive, but let me be absolutely clear. These are 5 different stories reporting on different incidents. Our first story is from October 13th, 2023.
Human Rights Watch has confirmed reports of Israel firing white phosphorus munitions during attacks on Gaza and along its border with Lebanon. White phosphorus poses a high risk of excruciating burns and lifelong suffering. Its use as an incendiary weapon in civilian areas is a war crime. Israel denies using white phosphorus. Israel previously used white phosphorus in attacks on the Gaza Strip, including in 2009.
December 14th, 2023.
Meanwhile, the Washington Post has confirmed that Israel used U.S.-supplied white phosphorus in attacks on southern Lebanon. In Washington, D.C., State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller addressed the reports.
Anytime that we provide items like white phosphorus or really anything to another military, we do it with the expectation that it will be used for legitimate purposes and in full keeping with international humanitarian law and the law of armed conflict. So we're looking into this and looking for additional information.
June 7th, 2024.
Israeli forces have illegally dropped white phosphorus munitions on densely populated residential areas in southern Lebanon, forcing many residents to flee. That's according to a new report by Human Rights Watch documenting Israel's use of the chemical in at least 17 municipalities across southern Lebanon since October, including 5 towns where the shells struck several residential buildings.
So does the U.S. have any policy that with regard to the use of white phosphorus?
So
setting aside whether or not these individual incidents occurred.
Yeah. So white phosphorus is something that's commonly used in military operations to produce smoke, to obscure ground forces, mark locations, or provide illumination. And just the usage by itself is not something that's prohibited under international humanitarian law. But as with any type of military operation, civilians can't be targeted. If white phosphorus is used, precautions have to be taken to minimize harm to civilians, and it's incumbent on countries to use white phosphorus in ways that are consistent with international humanitarian law.
Are these incidents concerning that Human Rights Watch is saying that they were outside the bounds of?
So I've seen the reports, but that is the type of thing that we'd have to take a look at and assess before commenting in detail.
That was State Department spokesperson Matt Miller being questioned by The Intercept's Ryan Grimm.
October 18th, 2024.
UNIFIL, the UN interim force in Lebanon, has reiterated it will remain in place despite ongoing deliberate attacks against its members by Israeli forces. UNIFIL also said it found evidence of possible use of white phosphorus weapons near one of its bases. Israel's killed at least 2,400 people in Lebanon and forcibly displaced over 1.34 million people over the past month.
And March 26th, 2026. 7 months since this episode was initially recorded.
Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch documented Israel's use of white phosphorus munitions over the southern Lebanese town of Yofmor on March 3rd, firing the incendiary weapon over residential areas and sparking fires in at least 2 homes. Ahmad Beidoun, an open-source intelligence researcher at Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands, mapped 248 Israeli white phosphorus strikes across southern Lebanon, finding 39% hit civilian areas. Lebanese authorities say Israeli attacks have killed more than 1,000 people since March 2nd and forced more than 1 million people to flee from their homes.
It's really fucked up that even at his absolute worst, Walker is still like 1 degree above the IDF, because at least he didn't mean to set fire to all those civilians.
Right. But immediately he compartmentalizes and turns around and says, look what they made us do.
Yeah.
And it's cold. It's harrowing.
Why? You brought this on yourself.
We were helping.
What? Oh no.
Are those civilians?
Where'd they come from? There's no camp here.
They took them from the nest.
That hotel back at the storm wall? No, those can't be the civvies that got kidnapped. It's not possible.
Yeah, it is. That's why Gould stormed this place. He didn't want the gate.
He was trying to rescue his people. This is your fault, goddammit! Stop right there, Lugo. But it is! He wouldn't listen! We have a choice! He turned us into fucking killers! That's enough, Sergeant! No! Control yourself! Now!
We need to keep moving.
What?
Reinforcements will be here any second. We need to keep moving.
But Walker, you're not even...
I'm gonna make these bastards pay for what they've done. Now, are you with me or not?
Rather than feel an emotion for the guilt of the 40 plus people he killed, including a mother cradling a baby while their entire flesh is melted off, they made us do this. What the fuck? These monsters.
It's one of my favorite moments in the game, just because there's such a one of my personal just things that really piss me off about the world generally is the idea of the hard choice we have to make in order to get to the good result, the necessary evils that we have to do.
Yeah,
because I feel like that is an idea that is so often severely abused to just justify doing absolutely awful shit.
Mm-hmm.
There is a valorization of the aesthetic of being the person who makes the hard choices.
Yeah,
I think I wrote a whole long post about this that I won't relitigate here. I think last year, about how there is a real tendency, especially in liberal politics, I think, for loving the guy who's I can put my foot down and make the hard call. This is a lot of the enthusiasm for Gavin Newsom at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
And this game really it takes a lead pipe to that idea and is people will use this to justify setting fire to a bunch of people for no reason. It's a rationalization as often as it is an actual tactical consideration.
Yeah. A person who was not supposed to be there, causing problems and irresponsibly entering a region that they have no responsibility coming into, and then acting like they're backed into a corner, having to make tough decisions by this oppressive force. It's I need to make the hard decision to save the most number of lives. We need utilitarian thought in these confusing times. This is the best outcome. And it's you weren't supposed to be there. This is an entirely manufactured situation, right? You produced these conditions and then you lost control of it. And now you're just hitting the reset button on something that was entirely your fault in the first place. When Gavin Newsom is entering a homeless encampment to scatter these people he produced the conditions that produced this homeless encampment in the first place. And now he's further inflicting punishment on them, all because he wants the Olympics to be hosted in California and he doesn't want to look bad. And then he has the gall to call himself the guy who's making the hard, tough choices, the man who can be tough enough to stand up to authoritarianism and to Trumpism, as if he's not just copying every move from their playbook deliberately.
It's the same thing with his approach to trans politics as well, where he talks about oh, well, we need to cede ground on these issues because really we need to meet the median voter where we're at. By doing that, he's moving the Overton window further and further to the right by fear mongering about trans people in sports or gender affirming healthcare for minors.
Mm-hmm.
He's, again, you're saying, he's creating the conditions where he would have to do the terrible thing that he's saying is a tough choice for him. And that's the same thing in the line. There is technically a choice that you can make in the moment with the white phosphorus. Lugo says that you don't need to use it, and you can actually open fire on the 33rd from that position. And you will die. You die if you do that. There's no way to win that fight. But good. It's good if you die in that situation. It's better than using the white phosphorus. But the way that you are trained to interact with a video game like this is, well, dying is a fail state. So I have to do the thing that keeps me alive. I have to make the hard choice.
Dying is a fail state in the video game, right? And ultimately, and then the whole outcome of that being, look what it made us do. This is the same group of people who were oh, they kidnapped these locals. They're forcing them out of their shelter and taking them to this military camp. They were rescuing these people who were trapped in a situation they couldn't escape from, and were actually trying to help these people. And they were at the camp to find out they're keeping them sheltered and safe from people who would come and attack them, you.
From the CIA-led militia.
Yeah, from the CIA-led militia, or the more, because the 33rd that came there originally had a civil war and a faction break with the people who were with Conrad, who was using merciless tactics, or people are what the fuck is this wrong with this guy? We got to get out of here. And that obfuscated that confusing labeling, because you weren't briefed on the situation, because the military and the United States government is keeping it under wraps, leads to this confusion. And it turns out these were people who were genuinely trying to help the people of Dubai. And then you just went in, clicked the white phosphorus option, committed the war crime, and the damage was you did far, 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 far. You were the bad guy. You are the villain of this. This is you.
For This Is You, like I feel like that's such a good thing to bring up in relation to the scene because it does something that I really love. You were talking about like this in comparison to like the Call of Duty 4 thing, where you're on the AC-130, you've got like the big tank gun on the side of it, and you're just like blowing up these little white dots in this village, and it's like,
Crew, you were clear to engage, but do not fire on the church. Hot damn! Copy. Smoke them. We got a runner here. More enemy personnel.
that could be a military target, that could be a civilian. Who knows? Who cares?
Personnel right there. There's a guy by that car. Whoa!
And it's this abstraction
Kaboom.
of like they're just dots.
Yeah, take 'em
They're
out.
just dots that you're clicking on.
Roger, guy moving. Good kill, good kill. Nail those guys by the building.
And this game kind of it does the same thing where it's like showing you the thermal readout of like all these people running around that you're bombing. But it's actually this is also a thing you were talking about earlier. It switches to first person perspective.
Yeah.
You're not just seeing the screen, you're seeing it from Walker's point of view because you see his face reflected in it.
Yeah, he's his reflection. I didn't notice it at first, and I looked close, like, oh, that's Walker. I thought for a second it was like an overlay, but I realized like, no, it's the screen reflecting because it's the first person perspective that you very rarely take in this game, right? And to your point, like, yeah, this is like stuff that the Jacob Geller video mentions, the deliberate choice of framing you doing this act, not as you knowing what you're hitting, but you're just seeing the thermal readings in that cluster of civilians. It's just like, oh, that must be a lot of soldiers. So we'll just like strategically, we can end this all if we just shoot out here. Turns out those were just civilians, and you killed every single one of them because you did not see your targets as people. You dehumanized them. You made the choice that Walker makes to use white phosphorus was the choice to dehumanize the target, to remove any sense of humanity from his actions and the actions being taken by the target, the people who are in his way, his obstacle.
Yeah.
And when I said this is you, I was directing that at Walker because, and we'll talk about this perspective thing in the first place, the way that this game is confronting the player with their actions isn't in a you did this is your fault way. Walker is the character through which you experience these things, and you're actually following the directions of Walker ultimately as the character.
Mm-hmm.
You are believing and enabling Walker's delusion by playing the game.
Where is it? There's a really good paper about this game, which I have on my computer somewhere, and I'm just trying to find it. So it's by Toby Smethurst. It's called "We Put Our Hands on the Trigger with Him: Guilt and Perpetration in Spec Ops The Line." It really changed how I looked at the game because it sets out this idea that, like, no, it's not a case of like, oh, you, the player, are so bad for doing these things. It's like, it's putting you in the shoes of someone who would do this kind of thing, and it's letting you feel how you get there to freak you the fuck out and make you think like, oh god, I could be put in this kind of situation and I could do something this terrible. And like, you know, what does that then say about like the systems of power that would put you in that situation? How will that change how you interact with everyday life knowing that?
Yeah.
Really good paper. I recommend it.
And I will try and link that in the description of this episode so people can access that
I'll
paper
drop
easily.
you a link to it.
Oh, thank you. So that makes it so easy. We talked earlier about how perspective is an artistic choice that can be used to communicate the intention of the developer, right? We talked about in reference to Undertale Deltarune, Undertale being a game that emphasizes this, which has this meta commentary from the developer to the player about the actions that they take and the morality behind them and what drove you to make the decisions that you made, right? What things influenced you? Did you listen to what Flowey's presentation of the world is, or did you internalize Toriel's message of the game, or were you just sort of doing your own thing and just trying to play it? Like, what drove these things? And like the whole game is constructed around this standard idea. Deltarune takes on a completely different combat system with different rules, and Toby Fox said, like, outwardly, like, there is going to be one ending to Deltarune ultimately, like the choices that
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, so like I think to help alleviate the concern people have about the new combat system, I think is what he says, like, ultimately there are going to be some divergent paths along the way, but this all leads back to a single ending is what he's been very upfront with in the communication of this vision as this project has continued to go on over nearly a decade now. When you really think about it, if you start from Undertale.
Jesus, yeah.
Yeah. So, but this switch in perspective from this first-person view in Undertale to this third-person view in Deltarune, it's a consequence of the theming, right? You're alone in Undertale, and you are left to your own devices in terms of navigating your way into this strange situation, whereas in Deltarune, you have friends, you have a team, you are working together in tandem, and your attacks and the moves that you make are complementary in ways. There's synchronization, there's intention to that. And the third person view emphasizes the fact that you are with people because you had a squad with you in, say, Earthbound and Dragon Quest, and it still did that first person view for battles. But Toby Fox doing this in third person, that is a difference in intention. I know I spent a lot of time talking about Deltarune, right? This first person, third person dichotomy, we need to interrogate with relation to Spec Ops The Line, because the tactical military shooters that we are used to in this time, or the military shooters in general, are traditionally first person, right?
Yeah.
Your Call of Duties, your Battlefields, I believe Medal of Honor too, they typically are first person.
Yeah.
But this is a third person cover shooting game, and there are a lot of third person cover shooting video games at this time too, but
they're mostly sci-fi, if I recall correctly.
It's a deliberate choice, right? Like there's cover shooting in the Mass Effect games, some Xbox IP.
Gears of War.
Yeah, exactly. It's a choice to make these third person cover shooter, to make this a cover shooter in the third person and not the first person, which is, I think it's twofold in my reading of it, where it is giving you distance from Walker, so Walker can be a character that can have this arc that you're bearing witness to fully, and to give you some distance from the quote unquote culpability of the actions, right? The guilt that a person feels in Spec Ops The Line, I think, is so reductive when the people criticizing the game is like, oh, the game made me do a bad decision and then it turned back at me and said, why'd you do that? And like, no, Walker did that. You just enabled him to do it. And that's a different relationship than saying you did that, right? Which is like, if you think that that's how the game communicates to you, is that how you think all games communicate to you? Are all the choices that you make you doing that? Because Walker's his own character. It's not even a first person view of Walker. There's this barrier between you two.
And like even like the choices that you get Walker to do, you realize as you go on the game, you weren't even necessarily making a choice here. Like there's the scene just after the White Phosphorus where quote unquote Conrad is telling him to like, oh, choose between these two people to save, or we'll shoot you.
My duty is to maintain order. Without it, we would have died long ago.
This is a test.
Yes, it is. A civilian on the right stole water. A capital offense. The soldier on the left was sent to apprehend him, which he did, killing the man's family in the process. 5 innocent people are dead because these 2 animals couldn't control themselves.
I get it. We're meant to choose.
Choose what? Let's get out of here.
Lugo's right. We need to get as far away from this as possible.
That's enough.
Obviously not, because we're still here.
They are guilty. But what is justice? And how would you see it dealt? This is an order, Captain. Who lives? Who dies? Judge these men, or pay the price of insubordination.
We can't do this, Walker.
Yeah, let's just get out of here.
And go where? They have us surrounded.
Not the choice I'd have made, but you acted. That is commendable. Oh, I think you'd fit in perfectly here, Captain. Another life, perhaps.
And then, like, one of the twists at the end of the game is like, no, there was nobody there. Walker had completely fucking cracked at this point, and he was just like shooting at a pair of like corpses that had been strung up from this bridge. And it's not clear how much of even like the ensuing firefight was real. Like, yeah, I think there is this real thing of like, it's not about like testing your morality. It's not like, are you a good person who'll pick all the blue options, or are you a bad person who'll pick all the red options? And that's a fundamentally very self-centered way of approaching it.
Yeah.
It's about like, if you put a person from the army in this situation, what kind of horrific fuck-ups are going to happen by nature of like that being his background?
Yeah. It's more about like, this interactive space exploring, the military entertainment complex, like this being like, this is your idea of a power fantasy, and also just the buy-in, the propagandizing that these games do to you, either subtly or intentionally. By like when you make a war video game and you're playing as America against a terrorist organization, right? That is loaded. The term terrorist is inherently a political term.
I live in the UK, where I have to be very careful about what I say about certain people who've been prescribed as terrorists in this country, or I will be put in jail.
Right. Yes, that is a term that the government assigns to, whatever. Right. Unreliable narrators in video games have traditionally been like an external voice in your ear, feeding information to you, and you buy into it and take it at face value, and then it's like, you were tricked. Like a BioShock 1, if we're using another 2K game as an example. That is an unreliable narrator feeding you false information. And the reveal is that you were being lied to, and also that like you were conditioned to just be obedient and to follow these directions.
Would you kindly?
Yeah, would you kindly? This takes it a step further, and the unreliable narrator is the player character himself. And this unreliable narrative coming from his head and through his eyes, and you are just following his directive based on what he understands. Like the most, after the white phosphorus sequence, of course, one of the most harrowing sequences is this shootout that you're having in this mall, and you get separated from your squad who are under fire, and you have to like go through a room to fight a heavy. The lights keep flickering, and every time the lights flicker, the heavy is at a different direction, and you shoot at him. And then the lights go out again, and the heavy's just in a completely different position. And then you shoot at him again, and then the lights go out, and then the lights come back on, and he's getting closer and closer to you. And then you finally hit that last shot, and the heavy goes down. And then the lights come up, and it reveals that all the things you were shooting at were mannequins. It doesn't like register at first. Like I couldn't process it until like after the sequence had ended that I was being deceived as the player about what I was shooting.
It's so good.
It's really fucking good. We're being deceived, and it's the player character who's deceiving us. That's the tension.
Yeah.
That is the tension of the game. It is not you're a bad person for playing this game. It is like the deception that a game can impart to you.
You are playing as a bad person, and like you're experiencing how he's rationalizing that.
Yes. You are the consent that he's manufacturing. You are the agent of it, but like ultimately, like it's divided. The inherent compartmentalization of a third-person video game experience, the barriers, right? The things that we can use to separate ourselves. It's challenging, and like playing with that as as part of the interactive space, I think that's incredible.
It's such a like. I can't believe I've gotten this far in the episode without talking about this. It's so, I feel like, maybe not consciously, but it feels very in conversation with like Gundam to me.
Really?
Like Gundam is like one of the core concerns of especially the early like shows from the 70s and 80s.
Oh, I'm seeing it now. I'm keep going.
Yeah, of like how people use mobile suits to abstract themselves from the violence that they're doing.
Yes.
There's this like really iconic like early moment where Amuro, having like just shot up 2 enemy mobile suits while in the Gundam, is ordered to like shoot down some guys who are like escaping in spacesuits with jetpacks who just look like normal people. And he can't do it. He can't fire at them because that's not a big robot with a person theoretically inside it. That's a person. It's so concerned with like how people like use weapons, how like a more destructive weapon allows you to abstract yourself from like the horrible things that you're doing. I think especially like the white phosphorus scene.
Yes.
The decision to like show you your own face during that moment is such a like, you can't escape from this. It doesn't matter that like the enemy is a little white dot on a screen, or it's a colony that you're like gassing instead of having to go in and suppress manually. It's like, this is still the thing that you're doing. It doesn't really matter how you try to compartmentalize that.
Yeah. When we play a video game and the screen goes black, like we get the reflection of our face, right? There was that meme going around when Animal Crossing New Horizons came out, where every time the Switch turns black during a loading screen, you're just confronted with your face on the Switch screen that you're playing on. This is what, in a war setting, the reflection in Walker's face is to reflect like the screen being like this barrier of, it's like you said, the abstraction that he's creating for this white phosphorus thing. the war game, right? You've put up this artificial abstraction to remove yourself, but that reflection is still there. That's his Gundam. That is us as the player when we like abstract. Like we're not obviously doing Ender's Game every single time we turn on a video game, but we are engaging with like the following the commands to take out an acceptable enemy, and we continue just to create these abstractions, and then it's just like in a way a reflection on us. But rather than the game like forcing you to see your own reflection, Animal Crossing style, right? It is using Walker's space as a way to like make you reckon with his relationship with this screen and his abstraction, to make you reflect on your own relationship with the screen as an abstraction, and to interrogate the entire industry of drone warfare, of this entire like new era of monitor warfare, where we're just like computer screens taking out numbers on a screen, dehumanizing and atomizing through math, the way we're doing this with everything. LinkedIn, Tinder, everything is just the screen as an abstraction to dehumanize what we are seeking to overcome, which is ultimately other people, other human beings, the same flesh and blood we are.
Fucking like the crossover, like Microsoft Azure being used for like hosting ChatGPT and using that to like isolate people from their families because they're more reliant on this like stupid lie machine than they are on like actual human connection. The same service is being used by like the IDF to like monitor locations in Gaza. It's like it's just like all this one big like horrible dehumanization machine.
Microsoft's complicity in this war is by turning Israel's genocide on the people of Gaza into a data war. They're making it so that the IDF is killing numbers. They're taking out targets. These cloud data services are taking all the phone calls and communications happening within this region and collecting it, and they're weaponizing it, and they're using it to further dehumanize these targets into just like turning it into a map. This is a simulation that they are just, it's making, I hate to invoke this a second time, they're Ender's gaming this war.
They are.
They're creating further abstraction, and Microsoft's complicity is by making it easier and easier for this overpowering military operation to can further dehumanize the targets that they're genociding. Very good point. Bringing up Azure in this conversation.
I also think, on a separate note, as a concession to realism, when they show Walker's reflection in the screen, he should notice that he has kind of a double chin and then like shift so that he looks better in his reflection.
Yeah, but that would require him to actually reflect.
True.
Yeah, no, again, like immediately after doing that, he's like, why would the enemy do this? he's doing the Eric Andre
fucking Eric Andreing it.
Yeah.
Who killed Hannibal?
You did this.
No, you did. Your orders killed 47 innocent people. Someone has to pay for your crimes, Walker. Who's it going to be?
John? Is that you?
You tell me.
I'm done playing games, John.
I assure you, this is no game. It seems that reports of my survival have been greatly exaggerated.
This isn't possible.
Oh, I assure you, it is.
How?
Not how. Why? You were never meant to come here.
We have our orders. Leave the city, radio command from outside the storm wall. They send in the cavalry, we go home.
What happened here was out of my control.
Was it? None of this would have happened if you just stopped. But on you marched. And for what?
We tried to save you.
You're no savior. Your talents lie elsewhere.
Fellow Moonshot creator and guest on my Inscription episode, Andrew Sherman, asked the following question. Normally I wait until the end of the episode to bring up like listener comments, but he presented a question. Andrew hasn't played Spec Ops The Line, and here's a quote. I haven't played Spec Ops The Line, and I think it has become a big enough critique starter, trademark, and discourse object, trademark, that I think a lot of people who talk about the game also haven't played it. I'm curious how the game stands out to you as a game rather than a cultural object in gaming talk spaces. Now that metagame about gaming has become a more mainstream archetype, what sets Spec Ops apart? What makes it still worth discussing in 2025? Do you feel like there's anything else about the game besides like what we've spent the last hour talking about that we can speak to with that question?
I think it is like it's kind of grand that I think it is like the little details. I think like one of the weaknesses of discussion about Spec Ops is like we talked around the White Phosphorus scene for a while because it's so kind of like there's so much interesting to say about it. It's also like talk to death.
Mm-hmm.
It is the thing that people always bring up. It's the White Phosphorus scene and the bit at the end where Conrad is kind of running you through like everything that you did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Lost in the shuffle of that is moments like when you're firing at that crowd or when that woman runs at you and you have like the option to shoot her. It's stuff like the audio logs, which we haven't even talked about. Like there's this entire like sinister conspiracy running through the game of like how the elites in Dubai got out and left everyone else for dead, and it kind of explaining a lot of like what drove like the radio man as part of the Damn 33rd, what drove him off the edge was a lot of that. Because Spec Ops has so many of these like big splashy moments that are the only things that get talked about, it still has value as a like going in and looking for everything that surrounds it, all the things that those are like the building to or commenting on within the game.
Yeah. Heart of Darkness, Apocalypse Now, they're not adaptations of one another. They are works inspired by the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Apocalypse Now, it uses Colonel Kurtz as the name, but a lot of the moment-to-moment stuff's different. Apocalypse Now is very Dante's Inferno, and there's also like the T.S. Eliot poem, the one with This is the Way the World Ends being...
The Wasteland?
No,
the
it's
Wasteland
the
is the only
Man.
T.S. Eliot poem I know.
The T.S. Eliot said The Hollow Man. The one that ends with, this is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper.
Right.
Yeah. That's quoted in Apocalypse Now by Kurtz, and in some editions of T.S. Eliot's collections, it's accompanied by Mr. Kurtz is Dead from Heart of Darkness. So like Apocalypse Now's relationship with Heart of Darkness is fairly meta because Kurtz is also reading poems that reference Heart of Darkness and in the thing itself. I'm overcomplicating this, right? But like what I'm building towards is what makes this metagame in particular stand out from the things that have happened since then, like your Stanley Parables and your Undertales, is how this relates back specifically to the themes of Heart of Darkness and Apocalypse Now, which is about lies, right?
Yeah.
Kurtz's like ultimate enemy is the lies that have been told, and ultimately his conflict with himself is the lies he is telling himself at the end of his life.
Mm-hmm.
The delusions, while also being hollowed out by the lies told to him. This is a game about being lied to. This is a game about lying to yourself. It's not about lying to yourself, right? I guess it's interrogating the lies that you do tell yourself as like a form of cognitive dissonance and the compartmentalization.
This isn't my fault. It takes a strong man to deny what's right in front of him. And if the truth is undeniable, you create your own. The truth, Walker, is that you're here because you wanted to feel like something you're not. A hero.
Hugo! You left me to die!
I'm here because you can't accept what you've done. It broke you.
Colonel? Colonel, please. What's going on, Walker?
It's Conrad. He did it. All of it.
You needed someone to blame, so you cast it on me. A dead man. I know the truth is hard to hear, Walker, but it's time. You're all that's left, and we can't live this lie forever.
One of the hints that the loading screen gives you as you descend, like these start as like normal hints about how you can use features of the game or to remind you about like standard plot elements. But as the game continues and as Walker's mind is falling apart, they become a lot more hostile. Famously, one of the loading screens will ask you, do you feel like a hero yet? As you are more and more obviously committing war crimes. Another one will say, this is all your fault. Another one will say, can you even remember why you came here? Earlier than that, when you're still in this more rationalization, though. Like one of the loading screen tips will just say, "You're still a good person."
Yeah.
And then another one will say, "Cognitive dissonance is an uncomfortable feeling caused by holding two conflicting ideas simultaneously." So coming back to these themes of Heart of Darkness and Apocalypse Now about the lying as a way of manipulation and coercion, and how that has sustained the Imperial project and also destroyed people psychologically on an individual level by being party to this stuff, right? The obfuscation, being on a need to know basis, so you don't know the whole of what you're participating in, because that's how the military operates, and how every organization, corporate, private, public, to keep you from fully grasping the horrors is by compartmentalizing you, so you're doing your task and you're not really considering the whole of what this is ultimately going to lead to.
Yeah.
Are you an assassin? I'm a soldier. You're neither. You're an errand boy, sent by grocery clerks to collect a bill.
If you are working in insurance, you're not the person that's ultimately killing a person. You are just one abstract cog in a greater machine of suffering that causes suffering to other people that you yourself are suffering in. Lies need to be told to sustain that. Obfuscation, collusion, shrouding. This is a cover-up. That's the way that the sand is covering up Dubai. The military wants to just cover up everything that's happening after this disaster, because they are culpable on like every single layer of this conflict. If the people knew what was happening here and they had the whole picture, this would be unimpeachably America's fault. The same way that the IDF and the Israeli government depends on telling lies to continue to cause suffering, the way America has to tell lies about other regions, like how we got into the Iraq war in the first place. Everything, just our entire relationship with the Middle East. This is something that the game is playing on, and it is just evident truth. We do not have a close relationship as individuals to these countries. We're not familiar with these. We know what we are told about them, and our relationship with these spaces is conflict. We only know them through the lens of conflict. What does that say when we're framing this entire region of the world that we have no physical access to? What does it say that the only way that we are able to see them as people in conflict, do we see them as less? Do we see them as primitive? These are lies we're being told.
There's something that's always going to stick in my memory. There's a British motoring show of all things called Top Gear.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they often do was like, it used to kind of be like, it's just like three funny middle-aged British men. They'll send them to a country with like some crappy cars and like watch them drive around and film them doing stupid things.
Yeah.
And they did a Middle East special in like 2010, I think, where they're dropped off in Iraq. And it's kind of played off as this huge, like, oh, this is terrible. They're like wearing flak jackets while they're driving around. They're wearing helmets. They're like hunched down in their seats.
Oh, God.
What? Go on.
You have landed in Iraq. Bethlehem is 1,200 miles away, but between here and there are a few wars. Best of luck, and don't forget to pick up some gold, frankincense, and myrrh on the way.
Yeah, enough of the myrrh and stuff, but Iraq. That's Iraq.
That is Iraq. So, first things first, you would agree we've got to get out of Iraq as quickly as possible. Now, the nearest border is Turkey, but there's no road up there. So, if we go into Iran...
Hang on, Bethlehem's over here, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the way we want to go.
Yes, through places like Mosul and Baghdad, perhaps. Have you ever seen a television programme called The News?
I'm aware of it.
Trust me, Mosul is properly dangerous.
That's really bad.
That's as bad as it gets anywhere in the world right now.
Top Gear is a show that is like very racist in a lot of ways. The presenters are very racist.
Mm-hmm.
But there is this moment that will always stick in my head where they're kind of sitting at a roadside cafe in Iraq, and one of them pipes up and says, "We've not been shot at once. Everybody we've spoken to has been lovely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking my fucking flak jacket off." It was like the first time for me as a kid being like raised on like everything to do with like the Iraq War and stuff, that like I was shown like, oh, this is just like a country full of normal people.
Yeah.
They're experiencing like terrible shit all the time, but like a lot of the people here who are just like normal.
Yeah.
It sticks in my brain because there's almost never anything like that.
Think about how precarious everything is right now and how normal people still exist and carry on normally. That's true of every part of the world. We are all being oppressed, likely by the same imperial core right now, right? But the normal people who exist here are also normal people everywhere else in the world. They're just experiencing different forms of subjugation and oppression and abstract layers that are extremely difficult to comprehend. It's horrifying, and that's why class consciousness and solidarity are such important things to understand in crucial moments like this, because this is happening to everybody. It is sustained by lies and the framing of what is reality. And when we see people in conflict as like perpetual victims, because victimhood is its own form of dehumanization, right? You're seeing this subjugation happening, and it's like we have to intervene. But intervention in an American sense is militarily every single time worse for everybody involved, because we don't have a system, even domestically, that nurtures. We are not a nurturing presence in the world stage. We can't even nurture the people within the borders, much less outside of them.
God, no, absolutely not.
We are in an abusive relationship with empire. And even within a domestic setting, it's much worse externally. Do not get me wrong, but we are not equipped for this. And yet we insist. And it's important that we understand that in relation to how America as a country justifies its actions externally. We're not improving anything. We're just inflicting suffering and harm everywhere and changing how we see these people as human beings.
And I think, like, to circle back to Andrew's question, I think that is one of the things that makes The Line still really interesting, even in like an era where we have so many meta games, so many things that are like talking about how games are made. The Line is one of the only games I can really think of that is like addressing topics that serious, that starkly and like head on. It has always struck me as kind of like a miracle that the game was even made, because it, obviously this could not have gotten any kind of like US military kickback, and the fact that it kind of came out the other end of the production cycle, even though it was like, the designer talks about it being compromised by the multiplayer and stuff like that, the fact that it comes out the other end, still able to like provoke discussion about this kind of stuff, to have like such a complex view of like so many like of the different facets of like how Empire works, is why it really like sticks in my memory so much.
Yeah, its meta commentary is more than about the medium. It is extrapolating that to the cultural conditions of the world, making us ask questions not just about like, why do we enjoy this, but why is this all happening?
Why is this available for us to enjoy to begin with?
Yeah. Why are we telling these stories? Why has this even been made? Like, why are military shooters made? Because, well, we have a military. Sure.
They got shooters.
Okay. And why are we at war? How did these stories get told? Why are these the stories we tell? You have to extrapolate that to culture more broadly. Like, I love meta stories about the creation of fiction, right? What's fucked up about like writing a story is that you are creating conflict and suffering and inflicting that like a god onto the page. Or with film, it's normally stories about like voyeurism, and how like this is a symptom of our voyeuristic perverse tendencies as people. And it's like, yeah, that's true. It is true. And it's not necessarily that, oh, movies are just a moral aberration and we should destroy them all. It's just more of a, okay, what can we learn from this lesson? How can we externalize this message and actually like internalize it properly, instead of just being like, wow, yeah, that's fucked up.
I mean, yeah, to take it back to Gundam in terms of what you're saying about mediums, like, I had all that stuff to say earlier about like, there's so much it has to say about the relationship we have with dehumanization and violence, and the way that weapons can be used to like compartmentalize those things. And it's also a show about how cool robots look cool when they blow things up, and I have a bunch of robot toys that I bought because of the show. Every medium is inherently going to have those kind of like compromises in it.
There is like a hypocritical relationship to have with these things. Like, this thing that is so brutal and raw is also something that has value to me as a big Evangelion fan, right? This is this Freudian, Jungian nightmare that is often very deliberately anti-commercial. Like the mech designs were meant to like make it difficult for them to merchandise, and they certainly found a way to get around that.
Well, they made them difficult to merchandise, and you know what? They did, because I can't get a Gunpla of the Ava Unit 1 from the original show. I can only get the one from the Rebuild movies, and I'm mad about it.
Yeah, I have those rebuild ones, and I like them, but man, it does suck that I don't have classic Ava 1. And that's the thing, we're talking about this, right? It was merchandise, and we have merchandise about it. And it's like, yeah, I don't have merchandise of a teenage girl in my house, thank God. At the same time, I'm like, man, I really would love a good Unit 2 also. And it's a work that is interrogating our relationship with mecha and this idea of being stuck developmentally in a place and having to grow up and accept and love yourself and see beyond the consumption, right? To get out of like this fetal state that our vices keep us in. And in multiple depressed points in my life, I have kept coming back to this and finding it a very life affirming message in a very shaking your shoulders way. And I do internalize that and take that with me every single day. But also, I have robots in my house because of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree that like this stands out. One, because of the form this meta narrative takes is very of the times in its gameplay presentation. And I do think it serves as a very good shorthand artifact to understand what were popular games and sensibilities and gameplay elements at the time. And it's also wrapped up in a commentary about why those things were kind of fucked.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's its value, both as a metagame and the things that it provides that are still specific to it in the age of like Undertale and beyond. Anything else you have about this game? What impact would you say it made on you personally?
I was talking earlier about how much I love games about like weird little freaks.
Mhm.
I think this game definitely was like part of what kickstarted that for me. It came very early on, and when I was getting into more like narrative heavy games. And Walker is kind of like, he's the little freak. It's to be extremely reductive about all the horrific war crimes he commits. It was such a like an eye-opening moment for me of like the ways that a game could like show you a character and show you the stuff that is wrong with the character, not just in what they say and do, but like how the game is making you play it.
Yeah. Already it's making me like it's a game that I definitely have issues with, and it's a game that I'm trying to reconcile some of these issues, right? Like a game doesn't need to be fun. A game doesn't need to be entertaining, right? It's for the way things it's communicating, it needs to lull you into this security and take this form and shape to really interrogate this, right? Like with the Metal Gear games, I'm surprised it took me this long to bring them up in this context. The Metal Gear games are their own thing. So they do often have criticism for the interactive medium as ways that manufacture, that normalize war to a generation of people growing up on these things. But it doesn't take the form of a traditional anything. These things are much more auteur driven and pushing the boundaries of the form while interrogating our relationship with the form.
Yeah.
And this is much more content to address that in a more clean way by taking the form and honing in on a very big topic through that form. I love the Metal Gear games, but that uniqueness is also part of why it gets so elaborate. Whereas with this, it's like, well, we can just sort of get rid of the pretense of familiarizing yourself with something you're generally familiar with and just cut straight to what we're trying to question and impart to you through our narrative. Yeah, it's making me appreciate one, it's making me appreciate perspective in terms of like first and third person more. It's also me trying to, it's helping me along my journey of being more conscious of what I'm eating in terms of film consumption, video game consumption, all that. And it is underlining my theme of like, to be a good artist, you got to pull from more than just the thing you're making. You got to do more than read books to be good at writing books, right? You got to live beyond like living life. You just have to pull from other things in order to push the thing you love forward. And this does that.
It does, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just to circle back to what you're saying about like having some issues with this game, I couldn't think of a place to put this earlier, but I did want to bring it up because I do think it's kind of an important, like, it is like one of my major, like, actual, like, I think you fucked up here criticisms of the game.
Mm-hmm.
In pulling as heavily as it does from Heart of Darkness, it obviously excises a lot of Conrad's more overt racism.
Mm-hmm.
I think like the form that it has taken accidentally, implicitly, or accidentally, implicitly at the very least, leaves in like, like, in Heart of Darkness, you never hear from like the people who actually live in the Congo. It's all about the effect that this has on Marlowe and Kurtz.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a trap that this game falls into.
I agree.
As much as it has a sympathetic eye for the residents who live in Dubai, the game is very much about how much it sucks to be them. We also never hear from them outside of like audio logs. I think that absence is like that you can justify that as a creative choice. I don't think we need to have just like a resident who lives there like get a monologue into the camera about how much of a bastard Walker is.
Right.
I do think that it still means that like even within a game set in Dubai, the people who actually live here are kind of like they are kind of they're dehumanized as victims. They're not able to really see them as people. And again, that probably helps. That helps Walker to like shoot them, and it helps explain why he would do something like that. But it's disappointing when that's such a huge problem in these military shooters.
Yeah. It's a perspective problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are adopting a perspective, in this case, you are literally in the mind of Walker, you do not get to see the story impart the humanity that a story like this may need, because our limitation as the consumer of the thing is we can only do so much to fill in the blanks the story's leaving, right? Like the humanity that we can impart is entirely on us, right?
Yeah.
That's our limitation with that. And yeah, this is built into the Joseph Conrad Heart of Darkness story. It's like, I mean, it is something that is full of Conrad's perspective, and the story that it's telling is also going to be filtered through like the perspective of the character it's following.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to cut to other characters and seeing what they're doing in the meantime. We are stuck in this third person or first person limited perspective in these respective stories. Apocalypse Now, you're stuck in the narration of Martin Sheen's character and his perspective on things, and it being a film with other characters around him. Even then, they're all other soldiers. The Vietnamese people and the other populations involved do not get the same amount of time or attention devoted to them because of that perspective, and that can lend to some very narrow views and perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely see how this movie plays into it. It's almost like weirdly, I think this game might successfully overcome that the most by the nature of putting the controller in your hands and making the mindset thing more overt with the unreliable narrator of it all.
It definitely at least feels like the case where it is the most like effective for what it's trying to say.
Yes.
I guess like in Comrade's case, it was effective for what he was trying to say, because what he was trying to say was really racist.
Yeah.
These people have seen the end of the world. No food, no water, no hope. Friends dead, family butchered. They live in hell, and yet they still take time to smell the dying roses. I get why the Colonel does what he does. But if these people can still muster enough soul to create art, maybe there's more than he sees. I've been thinking a lot about Murrow, broadcasting out of Blitz, London. He helped people. He showed him something that the Nazis couldn't flatten. That truck out front has an old CB. If just maybe I could put my hands on some speakers, I wouldn't that be something?
I would kill for some kind of like meta, or it's a sequel to Spec Ops, or some kind of like game that is a response to it that is based on something like Things Fall Apart.
Mm-hmm.
For listeners who don't know, Things Fall Apart is believe the author's name was it Chinua Achebe? Yeah, Chinua Achebe. It's a response to Heart of Darkness, from the perspective of a guy whose family were like brutalized by British colonizers, and it humanizes the kind of people who are on the sidelines in Heart of Darkness constantly, and kind of really wraps around into this idea of like the novel ending with like the kind of white British guy who's come in being like, oh well, I'll maybe dedicate a paragraph to these guys and their plight that took up this entire novel. And that's kind of like where they end up by the time when they're in Heart of Darkness. I would be so fascinated for like to see what someone could do with that idea as like a response to the line.
Yeah. This is a symptom of commercial, right?
Yeah.
What sells, what plays, what resonates is a limitation of perspective, right? If a game came out that was explicitly saying you play as the people America is actively trying to slaughter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hard sell. Hard sell, unfortunately. And with the commercial being so dependent on these things, it can be difficult to make such a thing. It's also a symptom of why so many military narratives are like shoot and cry, right? Oh, this made our soldiers feel so bad. Oh, this is hell on the soldiers that we inflict, right?
What's that Frankie Boyle joke? Well, send our soldiers over to your country to shoot your babies and then make movies about how sad shooting the babies made them.
Yeah. I mean, this is like a whole entertainment industry in Israel is making movies about how hard it is to be an IDF soldier after you do all that and the trauma it gives you, right? How hard it is to like shoot the Palestinian people and to ruin their lives for. It's like, man, if you just had like slightly more theory in your mind, maybe you could actually see this for like, this isn't worth it and this is bad actually. Anyway, could somebody who is the victim of all this oppression appreciate Spec Ops The Line and its perspective and point of view? Or is it really just who is the intended audience for this? I think it has a built-in limited audience.
Yeah. Which all art does when you get down to it, but yeah, it sticks out so much when it is about like the plight of like these people who don't really get a voice.
Yeah, it's bad that we go to countries with Arab people in them and slaughter them, but there is the sticking point of like, man, I wish art was capable of depicting Arab people as people before they're killed or brutalized, right?
Yeah,
and that's something that we also have to reckon with this stuff, and while we praise it, so great, thank you for bringing that up.
It takes a strong man to deny what's in front of you.
Stronger than you were.
Whatever you say, Walker. No matter what happens next, don't be too hard on yourself. Even now, for all you've done, you can still go home. Lucky you.
Was there anything that you would recommend based on the conversation that we had, like whether that is film, movie, television, books, etc.?
Like I think that if anything that we've been talking about in terms of like dehumanization and depersonalization and that stuff interests you, you should go and watch Gundam. You should go and watch Mobile Suit Gundam from 1979, especially Zeta Gundam. I think like delves into this stuff a lot, and Mobile Suit Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans from 2015. Which is, I think, like the most heavily engaged of like the modern Gundam shows with these ideas in like a really interesting way.
Yeah. Any other recommendations?
I know I've been talking a lot of trash about Heart of Darkness. I know that there is an academic school of thought that says that it like just shouldn't be taught because it is that bad. I do think it's worth a read. I find it very helpful for like thinking about how I view the world, to like look at Conrad kind of struggling to like try and find a way to express that like Empire is bad, but not being able to get past the like incredibly racist views that have been ingrained in him by his time. And I think coming out with like a book that at the end of that is like weird and kind of incoherent, but also like it has these like very, very beautiful like literary impressionistic like this like really beautiful prose. I think like it is worth a read just to kind of like to see like where culture was at the time that it came out, and also like to kind of like get a better idea of yourself as someone who like, you know, you're not immune to propaganda. Here's the kind of shit that you can imbibe, and even though you're like trying to like do a thing about how bad Empire is and racism is like a straightforward tool of Empire, you can't escape from the racism. And like examining in yourself, like, okay, what have I kind of taken in that I'm maybe not looking past, even though I'm trying to like imagine a better world.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great recommendation. I think you're doing a good job. One, contextualizing, but two, just understanding this like push-pull conflict that we have with
Mhm.
art and inspiration and how
I
these
d-
things. Yeah.
I will add a quick edit. I do understand why people like don't teach this, especially because like the way that literary canon is often used is often like exclusively venerating. I think like reading Heart of Darkness, teaching Heart of Darkness, you have to do so very critically.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to, to interrogate the canon of things, right?
Yeah.
That's a conflict I have with this show, right? Like that's why I'm glad I have a show that is about talking about people's personal relationships removed from like some sort of like, these are the games and this is what everyone agrees is the game. So we're going to talk about that. Boring, right?
Yeah.
We have to balance our understanding, and there is always a built-in inherent reverence of like understanding this is canonical and influential and it informs this. That it eventually trickles over to something that you do care about and like on a personal level.
Yeah.
And it does just inform how things are created, right? Like Shakespeare defined language and storytelling and everything like that. And that's going to this is true of art that has been made much more recently too. And especially the stuff that we now understand was limited in its thinking and prejudiced in its thought.
Yeah.
We can't change its influence, but we can interrogate and critique it and supplement, right? Balance that perspective with works from alternative perspectives or amplify the voices that have been hurt in the veneration of these works, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Which again is why I think like Things Fall Apart is like kind of an essential companion to Heart of Darkness. Like that, I think like to your point is like a golden example of that.
Right. No, and I'm glad that you're pairing those. A recommendation I have, a film, is the film The Battle of Algiers. If you want to talk about perspective and how that can inform the views of things, right? The Battle of Algiers is a 1966 Italian-Algerian film directed by Gillo Pontecorvo, who was an Italian communist who himself resisted the fascist movement in Italy in the 1940s. He was part of the Italian Communist Party during the 40s and was himself a resistance leader in Italy. And he went on to become a filmmaker.
Sick.
And one of the films that he made was The Battle of Algiers, which was the story of how Algeria fought and won independence from the French occupation. It is scripted. It is shot in a documentary style on location in Algeria. It's like documentary type editing and newsreel style in a lot of its sequences, but it is a humanist film that shows the perspective of the revolutionaries and the occupiers.
Interesting.
The FLN movement, the liberating forces trying to fight for their freedom, and the murky tactics that earn sympathy and also can be hard to rationalize because you see them plan and carry out tactics that will have human lives, young lives be collateral damage for them. But there's also this injustice done to them. It's dealing with the reality of war from that perspective. And also, in portraying the conflict as neutrally as possible, the FLN is still much more sympathetically played than the occupiers who try and snuff the movement out.
Yeah.
It is partially an exercise in showing that if you try and actually portray these things neutrally, there will ultimately be a side that is much less brutal and cruel. This is, a humanist perspective. We cannot, if we want to not hide from the truth, we have to experience reality, but we also need to deal with why these circumstances happen in the first place.
Yeah.
And it was made with the cooperation of people who were actually in the FLN.
That's cool.
The main actor on the Algerian side was literally one of the resistance fighters of the movements, and he was giving contributions to the story and the script.
That's really sick.
Yeah, interestingly enough, the man who plays the leader of the French force trying to prevent this was himself somebody who actually served in the French military and fought in conflicts like this, and actually disagreed with the film's message and its portrayal because he thought like what he did was justified. But yeah, no, Battle of Algiers, if we want to talk about balanced perspectives and sympathy for the people that have been historically oppressed and used as collateral for our Western ends.
That sounds really cool. I think I will check that out, actually.
Yeah. The guy playing the French colonel is the only professional actor in the film. Everybody else are like Algerian actors who actually lived and experienced these conflicts because the Algerian War had just ended.
Jesus.
when they made this movie. So yes, Battle of Algiers. Cannot recommend this film enough. Sillier example. Silly recommendation now, I guess, compared to that.
Oh.
The Metal Gear franchise. If you want to talk about the culpability, if we want to talk about good depictions of morality in video games, I think the Metal Gear series does a really good job at that. Interrogating our relationship with violence and how it depicts non-violence as often the better option, not just in a reward system way, but in like a preventative way. There are fewer obstacles in your way, the fewer people you kill in a lot of these games. And it just does a really good job being able to portray that kind of like conflict without moralizing to you constantly about it, but just like reacting to it in a gameplay sense and imparting that message onto you as through the conflict of interaction rather than through the conflict of narrative. And I think that that's why Kojima is one of the best to ever do it.
Mm-hmm.
Kojima and his team, of course. No one person, right? This is a game. We're talking about a game where we're talking about like individualistic heroism is going to be the death of us all. So we need to remember that. Yeah, and those are my recommendations.
Yeah, hell yeah. I've never done a Metal Gear before. I should really check those out sometime. I played half of Revengeance and I got filtered by the dogfight.
Yeah. They're more abundantly available now on all consoles thanks to the recent re-release. It has been easier than ever to play the older Metal Gear games.
Interesting.
It's over. Time to go home.
You know, Captain, we drove through this whole city to find you. We saw things. You don't mind me asking, what was it like? How'd you survive all this?
Who said I did?
And yeah, Jane, thank you so much for taking so much of your day to talk about this unique video game. Please, before I let you go, promote the hell out of yourself.
So you can follow me on various social medias if you want to see me occasionally yell about things at Janie Shivers. If you would like to hear more of me talking, I co-host the show Unwise Girls with Jacqueline, who's been on the show before, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be surprised how much talking about like middle of the road YA books actually ends up crossing over with a lot of what we discussed this episode.
Right.
Rick Riordan, very, very invested in the liberal status quo. I was recently on the Moonshot Patreon feed. They've been doing a series called Moonshot Impossible, where we watched all of the Mission Impossible movies in order. I think I'm on every episode of that. And yeah, that's all I got.
Well, appreciate you being on the podcast again. Check out Moonshot Impossible on Patreon. Yeah. Definitely check out both of those things, especially Unwise Girls you can check out on wherever you get your podcasts. But with Moonshot Impossible, that's just one of those little mini series that makes worth getting on their Patreon, listening to, especially somebody who cares a lot about the Mission Impossible movies. I think that they're mostly delightful. Fuck 3.
Oh my god, you are the only other person I know who has that opinion.
What? Really?
Everybody else on Moonshot Impossible liked Mission Impossible 3. I was the only one who was a hater for that one.
Part of that movie was filmed where I grew up, and I don't like that movie. I love Philip Seymour Hoffman more than I love Breathing Air, right? But I can only go so far. I need to listen to the rest of them and go back. Yeah, check out Moonshot Impossible and then check out Unwise Girls too. Thank you once again, Jane, for being on the show. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of Select and Start. Once again, I am your host, editor, and promoter, Keifer. If you enjoyed this episode, please give the show a positive review wherever you're listening to this. Engagement helps the show, and your feedback will improve it. And if you want to get more engaged, follow the show on Blue Sky at Select and Start. If you have thoughts about Spec Ops The Line or any other games we've discussed, send a DM or leave a comment, and I'll gladly read it on the show. You can also support me on Patreon. If you pledge at least $1 a month, you'll get early access to new episodes as well as extended episodes with exclusive content. That's on patreon.com/Keifer's Corner. You can find a link to that and so many other links in the description of this episode. This was a really ambitious one. Oh my God. Select and Start is on the Moonshot Network, which is supported by its own Patreon. Find out more on moonshotpods.com. The art for the show is made by my best friend Avery Ott. You can follow him on social media with the handle at Avery Robin Ott. That is AVRY Robin OTT. The show's theme song was composed by Mike Petrie. His new mystery video game, Murder at the Birch Tree Theater, is available now for purchase on Steam. Check out the links in the description for their work, as well as Jane's. All right, I think that's it.
Do you feel like a hero yet?
Poor Diddy Kong.
You gotta clarify. You gotta clarify that.
Yes, I do. Every single time you have to say the full name.